Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal. As you know, in the energy sector, a lot of action is taking place, and the flow of events in this evening will begin with the Minister's opening remarks, followed by a presentation on various initiatives being taken in the energy sector. Thereafter, we will open it for the question and answer with the investors, and I'm sure media is also present here. Later on, with the permission of the Minister, we'll take questions from media as well, and this will be
First from the investors.
First from the investors. That's why that's what I said, sir. And sir, this is a packed house today. We have got in this investors meet the FIIs, the mutual funds, the private equities are present, analysts from the power sector, sovereign wealth fund investors, insurance, and power sector PSUs are also there. So this being the event, it's not for me to take much of your time. I would hand over the mic to our Honorable Minister, because as you all know, our Minister is not only a man of action, he has also been one of the finest communicators. It's over to you, sir, please.
Haven't you heard that about ministers before? It's the usual sentence that is always said. Thank you very much for such a large turnout at such a short notice. We were actually flying from Delhi to Cochin on Friday evening, and I had the Power Secretary, my colleague Mr. Verma, Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Power, Anuj, and several other of us. We were actually all huddled together around where I was sitting and finalizing the presentation for Uday to be made before the power ministers, with whom I had already scheduled a conference, coincidentally, on the 6th and 7th in Cochin. And it was a quirk of fate that on the 5th, the Honorable Prime Minister called the meeting, the cabinet meeting, which approved Uday. And so we were working on putting together a presentation for the ministers. And I was simultaneously going through the papers, trying to understand what the newspapers had covered. There were a few good comments from different segments of the investor community. And it's about then that I realized that what was being written did not reflect a lot of what was being planned. And there was far more to Uday than possibly could be communicated in the course of a brief 10 or 15-minute press conference, which I had held on the evening of the 5th. In any case, that was after the cabinet around 7 o'clock, by which time I think most national newspapers have already closed their edition or are on the verge of closing their headlines. So I spontaneously suggested to my colleagues, why don't we make up a presentation fleshing out more details of what Uday is all about. Why is it different from whatever happened in the past? Why it cannot fail this time around? Why the naysayers who keep saying, well, we've heard this before, we've had a 2002 package, we've had a 2012 package, 12 or 13, I don't know, because there's a package which went on for 12 or 15 months before it was even implemented. And the holistic nature of this entire Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana could not be brought out in any press note, in any write-up, or in any way without a personal interaction, without an ability for people to ask me questions, grill me if I may, and I'm open to that. But I can reassure each one of you that this is something which has come out of nearly 8 or 9 months of very, very serious introspection about what's happened in the sector, deliberations about what is feasible. Political realities have been factored in while making the program. Nothing very utopian is planned. They're all simple interventions. There's no one size fits all. It's more of a overall framework within which we can work together with states and other stakeholders to package a custom-driven solution wherever required with each state. And it is with that view that when we landed in Cochin on Friday morning is when possibly we first started making a few calls. I called up my friend Ravi Kapoor. Incidentally, the idea also emanated because he wanted me to interact with some of his investors on con calls. And I suddenly realized I do one con call for one fund, and then all of my other friends in this room would have made my life miserable. So Trivedi Gautam wants to confirm that he would be one of them. So I thought it best that we put everybody on the same page, on the same table. I think we are webcasting this. Should anybody from the media desire that the world should know what we are trying to do, please do carry it on your channels, in your newspapers, in as great detail as you can, so that the people of India know what's in it for them, how they can significantly benefit from what's proposed under Uday. I can also confirm to all of you that all that we've done may not be perfect. But in the 8 or 9 months, I've tried to put in the best brains working on this. I've consulted with banks extensively at every level and in a series of meetings with bankers. I've had the privilege of consultation with tax experts, with investment bankers, with bureaucrats from different ministries, retired experts in the power sector, consulted with the public sector companies a lot. And then I've had a series of discussions with state governments, with chief ministers, chief secretaries, power secretaries, and most importantly, the finance secretaries of states, who have a lot to say on the scheme. By and large, it's had pan-India acceptance. No state to date has rejected our proposals or has said we will not come under Uday. So I am fairly confident in the next quarter or 4 or 5 months, we should be able to draw the entire nation into the package, all the states, union territories, build out programs which will help each state customize some vagaries which may help them do it in a more sustainable manner. And the entire program addresses the issues of what we have inherited, that is the past, what needs to be done in the next 2 or 3 years, the roadmap towards turnaround of these discoms, and a permanent resolution in the future, so that no dispensation in the future can allow the discoms to go down by the wayside in the years to come. So that's been the overarching objective of the entire program. I would like to leave behind me in the power sector a legacy which, just like Suresh Prabhu in 2002 left behind a very robust power sector, but possibly the only missing element on that was a deterrent for the future. This time around, we've added that deterrent for the future and tried to make it as all-encompassing as possible. Questions are welcome, suggestions are welcome. I'd be delighted if some of you can come up with additional ideas which we can implement. I'm happy to go back to cabinet should it so require, but by and large we have enough flexibility in working. So I'm not very concerned about my ability to change should there be some good ideas on the table. For your information, I have also invited the chairman and managing director of some of the important stakeholders in this story, so that after the presentation and questions, you are free to interact with them and ask them any questions you would like and confirm from them the ability of India to achieve these objectives. So I'll just call out some of the names, if you don't mind standing up so that they can see you, and then interact with you over tea after this. Mr. Jha, Chairman and Managing Director of NTPC Limited, the nation's largest power generator producer, a big stakeholder in the renewable energy program going forward. Mr. Jha again, Chairman and Managing Director of Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. He has his job cut out. They've done some outstanding work in the last 18 months, getting power to remote areas of the country, expediting transmission lines which were stalled for 10 years in a short span of time. Will be available for any questions, any clarifications. Mr. Popley is the Chairman and Managing Director of IREDA, the Renewable Energy Development Agency. And later in the day, I'll tell you some outstanding initiative that he's taking up in the next few days. Mr. Sharma, Rajiv Sharma, Chairman and Managing Director of REC Limited, Rural Electrification Corporation, and Mr. M.K. Goyal, Chairman and Managing Director of Power Finance Corporation. Two companies whom you have completely misunderstood in the last 3 days. In fact, one of the reasons that prompted me to do this is when after reaching Cochin, I was told about the hammering that PFC and REC got on the stock market on Friday. That actually then strengthened my resolve that we go ahead. I must have called you around 1 or 2 in the afternoon when the last nail was the REC PFC stocks getting a bashing. I thought, and for your information, I have a specific clause relating to these two companies in the cabinet note. So it was already well thought out what would be the impact on these companies. But we'll present that to you. So, shall we start with the presentation? Thank you very much for such a large turnout, despite such a short notice. Frankly, I never knew that I would have looked for a larger hall otherwise. But I thought Ravi and Ravneet Gill and all of the friends would be, and my good friend Rajesh Chaturvedi from Ad Factors will put together a few investors who may be interested in this drab subject like power. But I didn't know that there is so much interest and traction. I'm really grateful to each one of you who has come here, chai, tea, English breakfast, who have all come here on the auspicious occasion of Dhanteras. And I extend my greetings to you and your family on behalf of my Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, my own personal behalf, and on behalf of all of us in Team India working towards an empowered India going forward, save and accept a few setbacks along the way. But truly grateful to all of you who have helped to put together the investor community. I hope today's message goes to the whole big wide world and we can once again rejuvenate the Indian economy on the back of a reignited power sector starting from this auspicious day of Dhanteras. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Anuj.
Thank you, sir. So we have tried to encapsulate the major reform initiatives we have undertaken over the last 18 months, culminating in Uday. And the idea is to move towards Ujjwal Bharat, illuminated India. And the story is what we want to share with you today. Our entire focus is to work together as Team India to serve 125 crore Indians, and which means everybody getting together, whether it is the central government, the state government, the CPSUs, state PSUs and the DISCOMs, as well as the private sector, all of you, the investors, and the media, the consumer bodies. All of us, I believe, are ultimately looking at serving people, and that in turn, of course, for the private sector, enables sustainable profits. For the government, it provides legitimacy and continuity. So, our overall approach, although Uday comes under Ministry of Power, we take a very integrated approach across the power, coal, and new and renewable energy sectors. So even today you have people from all the 3 ministries here, As you will see, Uday will impact and uses the initiatives of all the three ministries together to benefit them as well as ensure that there are no roadblocks for their growth and development. So with power for all, 24/7 power for all as our central motto, we are touching a variety of things alongside. So whether it is starting with climate change, as you know, we have set very ambitious renewable energy targets, 175 gigawatt by 2022. You have recently seen the INDC targets where India has taken a lead and has even bettered most of the developed countries in the world. Uday as well as our initiatives around power for all will impact climate change, will impact Make in India. We are looking at investments of more than $250 billion in the three sectors put together, and it will have substantial local manufacturing. We will talk about the potential for that as we go forward. In terms of Swachh Bharat, few of you may know that every single government school in India now has separate toilets for boys and girls. That has been achieved over the last 1 year, that is post the announcement on 15th August by the Honorable Prime Minister, 15 August 2014 to 2015 is when more than 4 lakh toilets were constructed, and about 1.28 lakh toilets were constructed just by the three ministries of power, coal and renewable energy. The target was 1.21 lakh, and we exceeded that within the time period given to us, and that is showcased in every single thing the ministries do. There are a number of energy efficiency initiatives which will again benefit, whether it is LED lighting, which is the world's largest public lighting program, as well as world's largest non-subsidized public program, as well as other efficiency initiatives in industrial efficiency, agricultural pumps to be replaced by efficient ones. Smart cities, one of our flagship programs around integrated power development scheme, focuses on urban sub-transmission and distribution sector, and it is covering 82 of the 98 smart cities announced till date by the Urban Development Ministry. As well as Skill India, at the end of it, people make all the difference, and we are using various programs to skill people to electrify villages to ensure that there is 24/7 power. We are skilling what we call as Gram Vidyut Abhiyantas, basically village level engineers who go and lead the electrification programs in various villages. We'll talk more about it. Digital India, which includes smart grid, smart metering, IT-enabled programs, including real-time tracking of how we are progressing. I'm not sure how many of you have seen a website called delp.in. I would encourage you to even open it right now. You can actually see till the last second how many LED bulbs we have installed in the domestic sector. And it's updated in real time every 10-15 seconds, and brings in a whole new level of accountability to the initiative of LED lighting. As well as energy security, with coal as our base fuel and renewables, ambitious renewable targets, we're looking at energy security for the nation, as well as security at a household level, at a state level, with 100% rural electrification, ensuring that every village household also gets 24/7 power. Looking at since independence, how have reforms panned out? So there was this initial, within a decade or two of independence, there were a number of reforms around Electricity Supply Act, which came in 48, as well as understate. The commanding heights were primarily understate, so a number of distribution and state utilities were set up under state ownership. Post 91, there was this liberalization era, which meant private sector participation started. I'm sure many of you invested in few of the early generation companies, private generation companies which came in. Electricity Regulatory Commissions Act set up SERCs and CERC in 1998, as well as the landmark Electricity Act 2003, which really opened up the sector. Over the last 18 months, we have tried to accelerate this growth trajectory significantly, which you have seen in terms of coal auctions, record coal auctions, coal production, which last year saw the highest growth in 23 years, as well as now a double-digit growth already over the last month. Highest ever growth in power generation capacity as well as transmission capacity. Flagship schemes for rural and urban electrification. Biggest LED lighting movement in the world, as well as finally launch of Uday. So what are the guiding principles which underline all of our work? We like to call them transparency. In fact, transparency in every single thing we do. And the components of those range from starting with technology. As you see, we are able to track in real time how we are progressing. All of our, say, coal auctions are e-enabled. You can again track how the prices are moving in real time. We are looking at adopting smart grid, bringing in technology to ultimately improve efficiency. Root cause analysis. All of you would remember around the time when the new government came in, there was a lot of hue and cry about coal allocation, that power plants are not getting enough coal. How do we ensure that the right plants get coal and there is no outage, there is no critical coal level at any plant. But if you look at the problem was not about figuring out what is the right plant to allocate the coal to, but the underlying problem was that there was not enough coal. Once you have enough coal, then many plants can get coal, sufficient coal. So the root cause analysis is very critical. You have to get deeper into the problem to solve it. Otherwise, you will, at a superficial level, you can be misled. Accountability, something you will see is very integral part of Uday. When we talk about Uday's targets, we talk about at a specific circle level, who is the person responsible for reducing losses, what is the kind of support he will get, what will be his team, what kind of resources he will get, and with all that being given to him or her, there is accountability on that person to ensure that he or she delivers. And it is all a national effort, Team India all together. And everything we do is, we do it with a lot of speed. So Honorable Minister just spoke about the fact that Friday morning we decided that we are making this presentation to this large gathering, and everything came together within those 48 hours. So speed is very, very critical. Do it with skill and do it smartly. Prioritize, figure out what are the big roadblocks, focus on those, on clearing those. Achievement oriented, we want to achieve the maximum possible. The outcomes are very critical to us. So as you can see over the last year also, whether it is production, capacity increase, generation, achievements are very, very clearly the focus. Rejuvenate economic growth. We believe that ultimately it's not just about power, coal and renewable energy sector. It is actually about the overall economy, of which these three ministries are a very, very critical pillar. And if we have a fully functioning power sector, if you have a fully functioning coal sector, then your cost of factors of production for industrial growth become cheaper, and overall economic growth can become faster. Efficiency and economies of scale. Very clearly, talking about economies of scale, you have heard the famous statistics around how LED prices have been brought down to less than a fourth of what they were just less than 18 months back. And how that happened. We'll speak about that, how it was enabled step by step. And overall focus is on efficiency, that if every process works well, then you will have benefits which can pass on to consumers and can be taken by each of the stakeholders. National sustainable development. Whatever development happens has to be sustainable. Of course, our renewable energy programs are very much part of it. As well as customer focus, we can't forget the people for whom we are working, we're doing all this. And with a yes we can spirit, the challenges may seem daunting. In fact, Honorable Minister recalls a story very frequently wherein he spoke about LED targets to Philips over a lunch. And I think when we spoke about the fact that we are going to distribute 7.7 crore LEDs and more than...
Hang on, don't change my target, 77 crores.
Sorry.
77,
Yes.
770 million.
Yes, we can for 77 crore. So again, I think when Philips first heard about the LED targets, they of course thought, I think that it was that the Honorable Minister was just joking, and he took it as a good laugh for the lunch. But today, when we have already distributed more than 2.4 crore LEDs in just the last 6 months, really, then when you go back to any LED manufacturer, then you're taken very seriously the numbers you're talking about. So some of the numbers even for Uday or some other initiatives may seem very, very ambitious today. But with the Yes We Can spirit, we have done it and we will do it. So looking at the sector as a whole, the integrated value chain for the sector, we have tried to focus on various components of the value chain, starting from fuel supply. The coal story is very well known. Generation, with turnaround in many standard generation plants, as well as setup of new UMPPs. Generation remains a focus. Transmission, with almost 1 lakh crore of transmission lines being bid out, as well as expediting long delayed transmission lines. Transmission sector will definitely, as a bottleneck, it has actually eased out quite a bit. In consumption, of course, it is about energy efficiency, or what we call as demand side management, by reducing the consumption through efficiency. So whether it is the LED lighting program, industrial efficiency programs, efficient agricultural pumps, or as you will see going forward, efficient appliances, efficient ACs, efficient fans, which will bring down consumption. The target is to reduce consumption from today's levels by 10%. And distribution was always the weakest chain in this entire link. And going by the number of op-eds and articles, as well as analyst reports which have been written about something has to be done about distribution. If distribution does not get resolved, then you will not have
The
coal.
yellow block is distribution. I think stop using these fancy colors.
Yes.
Focus on black and white, transparent.
We'll add that to transparency, the principles also. So with distribution, of course, it was impacting everything else in the power value chain, whether it was coal procurement, whether it was generation. PLFs, as you know, were going down significantly, as well as there were potential power cuts, which we would have seen. So what has really happened in the distribution sector, and it's not a very old story. If you look at just the last 6 months, annual losses in the discoms, they have averaged around 60,000 crores, went up to as high as 77,000 crores. Add up the last 6 years discom losses, they add up to 3.66 lakh crores, which is almost more than 90% of the accumulated losses of discoms till March 15. So you can see the reforms which were made in 2002-03, they really sustained themselves for till 2008-09. And beyond that, we saw the sector letting go and these losses really accumulating at an extremely rapid pace. And unfortunately, the interventions in 2012, the FRP, etc., could not really stem the losses significantly. And that is where we are today, with a very, very unsustainable discom sector. So Uday, Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana, or in Hindi, Ujjwal Discom Ashwasan Yojana, you can use the words you like, aims at a permanent resolution of discom issues, as opposed to either focusing on initiatives on the present of the next 2-3 years or only on the past. It's also looking at the future. So what are the components or the building blocks of Uday? Let me lay them down one by one. If you look at the past, the debt of discoms, of course, has risen to unsustainable levels. In fact, for certain discoms, interest cost is as high as 60% of their annual losses. And as many of you know, that inefficiencies of discoms cannot be passed on in terms of tariff. Tariff is a prerogative of the regulator, and the regulators cannot pass on interest on the past losses of discom in the tariff. So which means that essentially discoms are in a debt trap and they cannot come out without any external intervention. If you look at over the next few years, we have tried to look at can we have an enabling provision for quarterly tariff increase or periodic tariff increase. So as opposed to your bill increasing every year and you're getting probably a shock laga in your bill itself with say a 10-20% increase, can we do it progressively, which can be implemented more easily and be absorbed by customers more easily, as well as the core building block of operational efficiency, which is reducing AT&C losses. Without that, none of this will stand, as well as things which have not really been touched upon in the past, which is around lowering the cost of power. Can we increase the efficiency in generation, in coal supply to decrease cost of power, which will again help us reduce ARR ACS gap. For future, we are looking at budgetary discipline, any hard budget constraints, which ultimately align the interest of the state and the discom, as opposed to just giving a freebie for some time to the discom, so that if it stopped working, it runs for another few years, then it stops again. Can we have a permanent alignment of state's interest as well as discom interest, and bringing them within the existing constitutional provisions of budgetary constraints or the FRBM Act, as you know, as well as constraints on future bank lending to discoms. We have seen in previous programs like FRPs where there was a package given and then there was essentially indiscriminate bank lending to discoms. They were perceived as one of the most lucrative sources, targets to lend, partly because they were seen as with sovereign guarantee. And that is something which will also be contained going forward. And at the end of it, another big pillar is reduction in interest cost. As you know, discoms are borrowing today around 12% is the average cost of borrowing of discoms. We have discoms who are borrowing at 14-15% also. As opposed to that, if you look at the state's borrowing cost, if you look at the last auction of state development loans, RBI's last auction, most states borrowed at 7.92%. So 8% versus 12%, which is a 50% increase, just because you classify it as a discom debt and not state debt. But ultimately, it is state debt because it will come back to state, and state will have to finance it, and does finance it because of trouble. So these are the building blocks of Uday. Let's go through one by one. Let's look at tariff first of all, and we have heard a lot about if only states were increasing tariffs, discoms would be healthy. We have, in fact, if you look at data, states have actually increased tariffs, not at a not at a insignificant rate. In fact, the average tariff increase of states over the last 5 years is 8%. What we are trying to do is, number one, have a provision which will mitigate the cost increase burden on the discoms, so they are able to pass on, say, fuel cost increase and other cost increases much more easily. And have it quarterly use existing provisions of Electricity Act 2003 as well as additional notifications, changes in the tariff policy which will soon come out, to have a one-time, let's say an annual declaration of, say, a 10 paisa tariff increase, and quarterly the tariff increase can be 3 paisa, 3 paisa, 3 paisa, 4 paisa. So that does not pinch the consumer as much, as well as it reduces delays in asking for tariff increase every time and going to the regulator every time. As I was saying, tariff increase is no substitute for efficiency improvement. You just cannot pass on, again, just borrowing another favorite example from yours, an inefficient motorcycle. You can build a motorcycle which is with a much more steel as well as a high-end cushion for the motorcycle, and increase the cost by 30%. Can you ask your market, your consumer, to pay 30% more for that motorcycle? It just won't be possible. It's because if you have not been efficient while manufacturing the motorcycle, if you have increased your labor cost significantly, if you increase your material cost significantly to produce the same good, the market will not buy it just because you're selling it. And that same applies for discoms. And unless that is taken up as a priority item, as opposed to only looking at tariffs, discoms cannot come out of the vicious cycle they find themselves in. Over the last 5 years, we have seen an average tariff increase of 8%. So these are some of the states, for example, where we have seen tariff hikes above the national average. The remaining states are below, but you can do an average. So if you look at some of the few states like AP, for example, has seen almost 13% tariff hike annually. Even UP, for example, some of the more debt-ridden states, Rajasthan has seen 10% average tariff hike, UP has seen 9%. So it's not that states have not tried to increase tariffs.
This is a misnomer many people had, that some states just don't increase tariffs. I thought it's important for you all to see that tariff is no solution. Just telling which country doesn't increase tariffs is absolutely no solution to this problem. And if they increase the tariffs, it'll increase the power theft. Once the theft increases, the inefficiency will increase, losses will further go up, and that conundrum will make it worse and worse and landing them in a bigger soup. So I think that right tariff has to be charged to the consumer, what he can afford and what should be a fair pass-through of an efficient discom working. That's why this slide was put up. And I also want you to pay attention. Can it be expanded or not possible?
Yes.
Pay attention. Let's take the first case of Kerala. You'll find 11, 12, 0%. That's about the time there was an election in Kerala. In 11, I think there was an election. A new government had just come in. Take Uttar Pradesh, 11, 12. There was an election in 2012 in Uttar Pradesh. There'll be one in 17. So you have to be politically savvy about reading this. And you'll be able to figure out which state does a tariff revision when. Andhra Pradesh, 14-15, they had an election in 2014. So you didn't find a tariff increase in 2014-15. But of course, Andhra Pradesh is an outstanding success story of a real fast turnaround of a discom, which we can discuss later. And the same will go down over the years. You'll find that recurring.
So this is something clearly which will help in the present, help discoms in the present over the next 2-3 years. They can, if required, they can increase tariffs much more easily. But the real focus comes down to operational efficiency, which is driven by AT&C loss reduction. And there are essentially two components to it. One is billing efficiency. So if you're supplying power, how many people do you send the bills to? And collection efficiencies, people who got the bills, how many of those actually are paying you. And combination of the two lead to AT&C losses. And if we are able to increase our efficiency and reduce AT&C losses, then the biggest benefit to the consumer is that the honest consumers do not pay for dishonest consumers. एक चोर की चोरी 10 आदमी पे करेंगे. So that is, in fact, you can see that happening in many sectors, where essentially they're free riders, you have a huge amount of theft or resources being taken up by dishonest consumers, and which brings down the sector as a whole. But with more efficiency, you are able to plug those losses and will avoid unreasonable tariff hike. And we believe with efficiency improvement, tariff hikes will be much lower than you would expect. If you look at the picture across regions, so when we started looking at what are the states to focus on, which states to prioritize, you look at the billing efficiency, collection efficiency, as well as AT&C losses across regions. So looking at North India, for example, it varies quite a bit, with Delhi at 14% AT&C loss, going as high as 49% in J&K. South India is typically lower, one of the lowest, in fact, as we said, AP, in fact, for 13-14, these are audited numbers for 13-14, one of the lowest AT&C losses in the country in AP. Even Tamil Nadu is actually almost at national average of 22. West India, again, performing well below national average, mostly Goa, Maharashtra, Gujarat, all with low AT&C losses. East India, you will see a lot of variability. It is also one of the worst performing. As you can see, a lot of states will have high collection efficiency, near 100. It's the billing efficiency where they stumble. So you will see 68%, 64%, in mid 50s collection efficiency, so billing efficiency. Some states like Sikkim, collection efficiency is also very low, and the combination of two leading to very, very high AT&C losses. A significant point to note is that if you just look at AT&C losses, one might focus on a state like Sikkim and say that because it is 71%, if you bring that down to say a target of 15%, that may be the best thing we can do in the sector. But we will have to look at the overall savings potential in the sector. So even, for example, Northeast India is very high in terms of AT&C losses. But if you were to do an all India analysis, of course, Northeast and East come out on top in terms of losses. West, South, North are relatively lower. But if you compare them to what is the input energy, how much are they consuming, what is the size of the state, and then use that to multiply by what is the reduction potential in AT&C losses. By combining the two, you can really prioritize which are the states to focus on. So for example, project the input energy, how much will the state consume by 2018?
How have you projected the input energy, 18-19?
By audited
Growth
numbers
of?
of 13-14, 7% growth.
Okay, so it's 13-14 actual numbers and a 7% growth up to 18-19 CAGR. This will be the energy consumption, and if we are able to bring down losses, in most cases we've kept 15%, wherever they're already about 15 or 14% to 10%.
Yes. Yeah. So there are few states who are already well ahead. AP, for example, AP, Gujarat, who have low AT&C losses. For them, the trajectory is lower. And if you combine the two, you're looking at Haryana comes out on the very top with a potential savings of 5,391 crores. And you can see, if you go just by the list of names, you can see the usual culprits, if I may call them. Many of them participated in FRP, and these are large states with large losses too, which if focused on, can account for bulk of the savings and efficiency improvement in the discom sector. So if you look at this table itself, there are 15 states here accounting for savings potential of 52,019 crores. If you look at the remaining states, about another remaining 15 states, they account for just a tenth of the savings potential, that is 5,505 crores. So if you start from the very top, focus on these states, you will actually see most of your efficiency in the sector coming in. But then ultimately, we would like every single state to participate in Uday and have a permanent resolution, because today, for example, Haryana may find itself with high losses, but tomorrow, let's say, even Uttarakhand with low losses should not become a high loss state if it does not have the right constraints. So we have seen that where states are performing extremely well. For example, Rajasthan under the government before the previous one. In fact, it was left in a very good, healthy financial state, and just over the 5 years, it found itself with almost 80,000 crores of outstanding debt. So we want to make sure that there is no turnaround in future for any other healthy state also. So how do we achieve this AT&C loss reduction and this efficiency? If you talk about billing efficiency, if you look at it fundamentally, distribution sector is no rocket science. It is about metering and billing and collection, and it starts by making sure that you are able to track where your losses are. You're able to track where you are supplying your electricity. So we have mandated, the idea is to have compulsory feeder and distribution transformer level metering in every single state which participates in Uday. So you can really track, you can even make a map of the state. You can see dot by dot, feeder by feeder, how efficiently is that area performing, how much are your losses in that area. And ideally, you would like to have that, every state power minister would like to have that electronic map in front of him or her, and you can, on a daily basis, you can track where are you making losses, how can you reduce it, etc., etc. And we are talking about every single feeder in the country will be metered by middle of next year, and distribution transformers will be metered by the year after next, by 30th June 2017. And then by using that data, you index where the various consumers are, how much are they consuming, how much are you losing on each of them, and do a geographical mapping of losses by 30th September 2018. So once you have 100% metering, then your billing efficiency can really be improved significantly. We also need to parallelly improve the infrastructure, especially transformers, meters, etc. Some of them are outdated. As well as smart metering. Now, what is smart metering? Essentially, when there are a number of definitions for smart meters, but if you look at the very basic functions which would typically be required from a smart meter. Number one, it'll be tamper-proof. So if somebody tries to open it up, manipulate it, it will send you information that something has happened. It's able to communicate two-way. So you can do remote reading of the smart meter, as well as instead of the electrician going to every house, you can have much more efficiency with let's say all the information coming to yourself, or even say if there is a wireless connection, you can read that much faster. So the idea is that anybody consuming more than 200 units per month will have smart meters by 2019. So for 500 units per month, greater than 500 units per month consumption, we are looking at smart meters by end of 2017. And for above 200 units, it is by 2019.
Incidentally, all these items that we are saying, the funding for that is being provided under the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana and the Integrated Power Development Scheme. So it's not as if we are telling them to do it, but not helping them with funds. So a lot of people ask, why will states come on board? So we are providing the funds, so they really don't have to worry. It all helps them achieve these results. So
that was about billing efficiency. For collection efficiency, we are looking at public participation. Awareness.
Billing efficiency, I forgot one thing. Unless you have it further in your presentation, we're also making sure that as each area improves its efficiency, overall AT&C loss reduction, you increase the hours of supply. So there is a situation in one place, I'm told, where the left side of the highway gets 24 hours and the right side of the highway gets 16 hours. Because the left side people are paying their bills. On the right side of the highway, there's still a lot of theft. Now there's a effect of comparison or demonstrative effect. And the people on the other side are putting pressure that everybody pays their bills so that they can also get 24 hours. So we're trying to involve the people, and that's where there's mapping, exactly identifying which feeders have what kind of losses. There are, I think, 160,000 feeders all over the country. I will have on my table each one of them available, where which feeder is deteriorating with alarm bells or whatever, flagging off wherever things are deteriorating at any point of time.
And again, similar to that, or as part of this, there is awareness campaign, public awareness campaign, which is, for example, in UP, you will see within the next month, you will see billboards coming up in every district, which announce that this area has so much loss, and that is why it is getting so many hours of supply. A good initiative in Haryana on similar lines is Mahara Gaon, Jagmag Gaon, wherein currently rural areas on an average in Haryana get about 12 hours of supply. They have identified certain villages with very high losses, wherein they said, we will start by giving you an additional 3 hours of supply to motivate you. What you have to do next is install your meters outside your houses so that you can read them easily and there is no tampering, or if there is, it is known publicly. Replace your old wires infrastructure, which is causing a lot of losses, and if you do that, you get another 3 hours. And after the bill payment crosses the mark of 90%, if 90% of the bills in the area are cleared, then you get an additional 3 hours. And if your outstanding bills, not your current bills, outstanding bills are also paid off in 5 equal installments, then you get 24 hours power. So you will see very soon in Haryana, as Honorable Minister said, villages next to each other, one getting 24-hour power, other getting 12-hour power. And we believe, and this has been proven repeatedly, that this leads to significant incentives, public incentives, to reduce theft and increase collection efficiency. Demand side management to improve efficiency, we spoke about it. LED bulbs, 77 crore LED bulbs and 3.5 crore street lights to be installed by 2018-19. Each of these, we have estimated how much savings you will have, and if you quantify that by multiplying by the average cost of supply, you will get 45,000 crores is the savings from household LEDs as well as street lights. Agricultural pumps, about 2.1 crore agricultural pumps as of today. We are targeting 50% of them to be replaced, and these are typically not metered or built. So any unit you save on agricultural consumption will lead to very high savings for the DISCOM. Fans and air conditioners, significant energy usage over there, about 16 crore fans and 18 lakh ACs. We have a special scheme for industrial efficiency through what is called PAT, Perform, Achieve, Trade. Overall, the saving numbers are more than 60,000 crores just from energy efficiency programs. The famous LED programs, of course, we are talking about 79 million tons of CO2 will be not emitted from by using.
By the way, this figure 2.5 crore may look small, but there's a minute by minute daily ramp up. So till about 1 month ago, we were doing 100,000 bulbs a day. As of today, within a month, it's ramped up to 250,000 bulbs per day. This is only the figure that is distributed through the Energy Efficiency Services Limited, EESL. This was a laggard company which in all of 2013-14, full year, had bought 600,000 LED bulbs. You have shown them the price afterwards?
Yes.
At 310 rupees. Yeah. The last purchase they did was in January 14. 600,000 bulbs at 310 rupees a bulb. When frankly, I'm honest and candid in admitting, for the first few months I was firefighting so many things, I didn't even realize that energy efficiency comes under my department. One day there was a cabinet note which I had to get approved. I said, what is this all about? They said, this is energy efficiency. It's for our plans for energy efficiency. And I saw those plans and I said, this can't be a plan I take to Mr. Modi. I'll lose my job if I tell him this is how we're going to do energy efficiency in the country. So we rescaled the whole program and look at what economies of scale, better technical specs, efficiency in the whole procurement and payment of government procurement, making the terms better, and transparency. No more envelopes. Many of you are from Mumbai, know how the corruption used to start with envelopes in the government procurement. We have absolute transparency, all purchasing through a reverse e-bidding process open for the whole world to see. And see the rapid fall in prices. 310 in September 14 became 204. I had given a target of 99 when in June or July I first got to address this issue. I said 99 bucks and everybody disbelieved me. Just like many of you disbelieved Uday when it was first announced. Everybody said it's impossible. 99. And look at that. 204 in September, 149 in November. When 104 happened, Ajay Mathur, the chief of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, sent me an apology text on my phone. And I'm all the time on text contact, SMS contact with officials of every department. All of them are on continuous text exchanges with me. He apologized that, sir, we haven't breached the 99 mark, but next time we'll do it. That was February, 11th of February. Next time, I got the proud SMS saying it's 82. Then we respect from 7 watts to 9 watts. All this time it was 7 watt bulbs. We increased it to 9 watt bulbs, and what we have now, I think it's 72.60 to be precise. The last procurement.
40.
For a 9 watt, 72.40. For a 9 watt bulb, not a 7 watt which was 310. That's what you can achieve if you do things honestly, transparently, with economies of scale, and sensibly. So one of the things which led to a drastic fall was government used to pay in 5 years the amount that each bulb cost. And I've had a series of interactions with the suppliers and manufacturers to understand from them what we need to do to bring down price. Just the one change that we'll pay you in 30 days, and an RTGS reaches every supplier on the 30th day. Just that small change brought down the price by about 60 rupees. Because who the hell will trust the government with their money for 5 years? Just that small change, and we reduced it by 60 rupees. So all of these things cumulatively brought it down. Then go back.
So similarly, if you look at any equipment, so
This has a huge impact, not only in the consumer bills, but in climate change. We'll be reducing 60 million tons of carbon dioxide through the home lighting and office lighting, and 19 million tons of carbon dioxide through street lighting. Cumulatively 79 million tons per year reduction in carbon gases by 2019. But the program is scaled up. We'll do 1 million bulbs a day in about 3 or 4 months' time. That's the kind of scale up we are trying. May not be 3 or 4 months, let's say 6 to 7 months. 1 million bulbs a day. We've already procured close to 150 or 160 million bulbs. The bidding process is over. So that manufacturers and suppliers know the roadmap and they can keep ramping up their capacities. And at much lower prices, probably do better economically. And all this is available on the website. All this data on a daily basis is available on the website. You can put an icon on your phone, as it said, DELP.in. And the website not only gives you how many bulbs have been distributed as of that moment, but also shows you the energy consumption saved, the cost saved, the carbon dioxide saved. So as we speak right now, 25,265,526 bulbs have been distributed by ESL at this point of time, as we speak. That was the technology focus in the transparency, the principles. And this will change every 30 or 60 seconds as the bulbs keep getting distributed all over the place.
You can even click on your state to find out where to get the bulb from.
And then you can
on
click
state.
on each city, you will know how many bulbs. So sadly, Mumbai, so if you click on Maharashtra, you'll get all the Maharashtra story. And sadly, we haven't been able to distribute or get Mumbai cracking because of some political problems with it's just started last few days. So only 78,274 bulbs in a city of the size of Mumbai. Probably less bulbs than what BKC uses. But they took about some time to resolve some problems or impediments that were put up by some politicians here. But that's got resolved, fortunately, I hope.
So just in terms of just to give you a scale of what we're talking about in terms of installation, equipment installation. Feeders and distribution transformers meters, which we are talking about 100% metering, 13 lakh units will be installed by 2017. 1 crore smart meters will be installed by 2017 and another 2.5 crore by 2019. Distribution transformers, many of them need to be replaced or upgraded. About 4.2 lakh will be done by 2017. Conductors, which is a significant part of your distribution infrastructure, about 11.2 lakh will be ordered by 2017. And each of these have significant ripple effects across industries. LED bulbs, 77 crores and 3.5 crores in street lights. 1 crore efficient agricultural pumps by 2019. And about 16 crore fans and 18 lakh ACs by 2019.
So please tell all your clients who are in any of these businesses to ramp up. There's a lot of business potential coming in.
Coming to the financial debt trap DISCOMs find themselves in. As I mentioned earlier, that regulators don't allow pass-through of interest on past losses and tariff, which means that there is a surgical intervention required to rationalize outstanding debt of DISCOMs, which includes reducing the cost of power, thermal power primarily.
Go back.
Sir.
Just go back. Okay, take it.
Cost of thermal power, now this is something new, has not happened a lot earlier. In fact, earlier it was not about the cost of coal, it was about if we get any coal from anywhere, we'll take it. Which is changing very fast. Just because of increased supply of domestic coal, you will have to import less. As you might have seen today, the news is that fourth successive month of coal import reduction. If we talk about supply increase,
Today's news is coal has increased imports, but that's also reflected because despite so much increase in production, power generation is also and demand is also increasing. But as we ramp up Coal India's production and all the NTPC mines, the private mines which are auctioned come out into the market, then you'll have a significant increase in thermal coal. Coking coal is still a challenge for India. We may need to continue to import coking coal. But my own sense is in the next 2.5 years, thermal coal import, save and except some of the coastal plants, if international coal prices remain very low, may find it viable to import coal. Otherwise, the rest can all be met domestically. And even for the thermal coastal plants, I'm looking at ways by which if we can move coal by inland waterways to Paradip from Orissa or those mines, move them by barges inland waterways to Paradip, expand Paradip or other ports over there to handle coal and ship them to coastal plants on the west coast or on the south. So we are working on more and more plans to reduce dependence on imported coal.
as well as more supply of domestic coal if it is met through your, as per the ACQ, which means lesser dependence on e-auction coal. So that again reduces your cost. Linkage rationalization, we have already seen examples. One of the most successful programs wherein coal was, for example, being imported into Gujarat, taken all the way to Korba, and Chhattisgarh coal used to come to Gujarat. So just by swapping the two, the obvious economic efficiency came through, and estimates are, as per the KPMG report, about 6,000 crore. 1,000 crore in the first phase has already been realized. The next is a new initiative wherein we are looking at liberally allowing coal swaps from inefficient plants to efficient plants. So as opposed to just saving the transportation cost, the plant efficiency also comes into play. And this may mean that, of course, plants situated away from the mines are able to transfer their linkage to a pithead plants. The linkages also then don't need to be plant specific. In fact, they can be company specific, so they can move them around across their company. The savings are around 10,000 crore just on that, as well as two initiatives around correcting the tariff fixation. So number one, coal price rationalization based on GCV. As you know, some of the higher grades of tariffs, if you look at coal pricing, it is not linear. Some of the higher grades probably can be overpriced, some of the lower grades can be underpriced. So linearization of coal price based on the actual calorific value promotes overall efficiency and reduces coal theft. Coal grade slippage is being corrected through reassessment of each and every mine, so that whatever coal you get is actually, its price is reflecting of the value, calorific value inside, and the buyers are able to make better decisions and are more efficient. The famous Coal India story, the overall target is 1 billion tons by 2020. You can see the trajectories right now up to 908 million tons, and there were some murmurs of discontent in the market also that has the target been revised. The target has not been revised. 908 million tons is basis the existing mines, identified mines. It will reach 1 billion target with additional allocation of mines, about 19 mines. So that will be definitely met.
Anuj,
Yes, sir.
give me a moment. You know how this 1 billion ton came, I'll tell you. It was not some well thought out plan or anything. It was in August of 14 when we were having a review of Coal India Limited. A very extensive review, somewhere around midnight when I think all the guys were also quite tired. Out of frustration, I said, look, if we've got to sort out India's problems of the power sector, we need Coal India to produce 1 billion tons of coal. It was purely a remark emerging out of the sense of urgency and a sense of frustration, if I may use the word. And we discussed and left it at that let's see, can we reach 1 billion tons? I'm so delighted at the effort of the entire team of Coal India. And I must acknowledge we have some outstanding officials working in all the public sector undertakings in the ministries. This typical feeling that public sector companies can't do well. I, for one, stand educated and enlightened that it, and I always said it even when I was in opposition, that it doesn't, the nature of ownership of a company does not matter. It's leadership and vision that determines the success or failure of a company. So you've had enough failures in the private sector also. Many of you may have lost money in investments in the private sector also. But I can tell you, my three ministries have the finest set of officials, whether in the government, whether in undertakings, states, and they're all working together. So when I just flagged off this 1 billion ton, they got cracking on the job. And they've been relentlessly pursuing how they can keep expanding the production. I released a document as a part of transparency in Kolkata, I think in July this year. And it's on the website. It's open for all of you to read, to understand. That document we were able to identify how we can ramp up Coal India to 908 million tons as of July last year. And now we are working together between government and the companies to see whether we can, what needs to be done, not whether, I'm sorry, I used the wrong terminology, how we can take it to 1 billion tons. And everybody in Coal India is committed to that billion ton. We have Mr. Day, who's the finance director of Coal India, also here. You're free to talk to him after the meeting gets over. We are committed to 1 billion tons. So they are all working as a team. And you'll be delighted to know we have 6,000 youngsters, young, bright IIT engineers, IIM graduates, young boys and girls who are working together to meet my vision of 1 billion tons by 2019-20. And then what do they achieve? A laggard like Western Coalfields. In this 908, Western Coalfields' target was 60 million tons. It's a company which always made losses for many years. It's a company which hadn't opened a single new mine in the last 10 years. It's a company which had acquired hardly 2,500 odd hectares of land for new mining in the last decade. This empowered team in Western Coalfields has kept working relentlessly, and on the 5th of this month, 5th of November, we have unveiled a program in Delhi by which we have upgraded our new mines program, which earlier we had planned to open 24 mines in 24 months to 36 mines in 36 months, 10 of which I've already opened. Between March and October, Western Coalfields Limited, which didn't open a single mine for a decade, has opened 10 mines in 10 months. And now will open 1 mine every month for the next 26 months, taking it to 36 new mines. And now they've reset their target from 60 million tons to 100 million tons. So you already got a 40 million ton addition on 908. Like that, each company is reworking what needs to be done to increase, to achieve not only 1 billion, but maybe better 1 billion. So, but we've been transparent about whatever we achieve, put it on the website, and we'll be held accountable. So you can ask us questions. All of us are accountable to you and to the people of India for whatever claims we are making or whatever targets and plans we are setting.
So the document can be, the link to the document is over here. You can copy it, or you can go to the Coal Ministry site.
No, we are going to put up this website in the interest of transparency, this presentation on my website. So you can go back to the notes to see what's been presented today. It'll all be a public document, and this website you can just click and get onto to show you the 908 million ton plan. It's a mine by mine plan, subsidiary by subsidiary, mine by mine, year by year what they will do to achieve this target. And as we improvise it, we'll also put before you the billion ton actual program in the days and months to come.
Number of other initiatives on reducing cost of power, speedy completion of railway lines, JVs with states, already signed with 2 states along with the railways. There are initiatives around supplying 100% washed coal for G10 grade and above at plants as per the MOEF, Ministry of Environment and Forest norms, for plants more than 500 kilometers away from mines. All such plants will get 100.
There's a 250 million ton per year business opportunity for whoever is interested. Coal washing capacity is going to be ramped up by 250 million tons a year. And we are now trying to add some standard specifications to cut down the time of environment clearances and designing. That's another way corruption or inefficiencies used to be done in the system. You have a special design for every product each time you are procuring it, a new design. We are going in more and more for standardization and large-scale economies of procurement. So just like LEDs, I'm hoping all these costs will also come down. And of course, these JVs are very powerful. Most investment is done by Coal India so that railway lines come up faster. States are now realizing that they have so much royalties to be earned, and out of the auction mine, so much money to be earned by increasing the coal production, that we are getting outstanding support from the states. The railways don't have to put in much money, so they are happy to speed up the lines, and therefore we are much more confident today of completing these railway lines as per the targets we've set out.
100% crushed coal will be supplied from 1st April 2016. On transmission, Mr. Jha can elaborate, but essentially number of delayed transmission lines have been completed. We have actually kept the long-term requirement in mind while planning new lines. So till 2030, whatever is the requirement, we are factoring that in. Awards of works of about 1 lakh crore just before the end of this year. So again, a significant business opportunity, whether as a direct...
South India is the biggest sufferer of lack of transmission lines. One of the first things we got cracking was the lines to South India. And there were lines which were 10 year delayed. There were lines which were delayed for 10 years, in which even if one tower would get stuck, he would SMS me, I would talk to the state power minister and ensure that he intervened and got things sorted out. So we've rapidly, I think in the last 18 months, we would have added 3,000-4,000 megawatt. More than that, more than 3,000-4,000 megawatt added to South India's transmission capacity. In fact, 700 megawatt got added in September, and another 1,000 megawatt we'll add in a week from now. So that's the ramp up that we are doing for South India, which is the only part of India today which has got a power deficit. Everywhere else there's power surplus.
So record increase in transmission capacity addition. Regional power transfer is, as you can see, even the two lines of Gwalior-Jaipur as well as Jaipur-Bhiwani, they're saving 10 crores every day. And Aurangabad-Sholapur will enhance 7,000 megawatt capacity. The southern corridor will get an additional 18,400 megawatt by 1819. Plus there are also inefficiencies in the transmission sector, especially if you look at intrastate transmission. The losses are typically around 4 to 5%. So even over there, we are looking at reducing losses. All goes down to reducing cost of power and benefits the consumer. Now looking at the prescription for resolving the past issues of the DISCOM sector, as we mentioned earlier, the high differential between the borrowing cost of state and DISCOM is wholly unwarranted. In fact, DISCOM debt is de facto borrowing of states, which is not counted in the de jure borrowing. So what we have provided for...
It's an off-balance sheet item basically. Everybody has just found a nice parking slot in the DISCOM to keep the debt and inefficiency there so that they don't have to account for it in their FRBM targets.
So to remove this discrepancy, states shall take over 75% of DISCOM debt as on 30th September 2015. As you can notice, we have not kept the date of March 31st, 2015. We have actually kept it as close to today as possible because we don't want to leave a gap and make sure there is a continuous bridge available to DISCOM from where they are to an efficient DISCOM. And we have not even distinguished between various kind of debt. So whether it is short-term loans, long-term loans, bonds, any kind of debt taken by the DISCOM is eligible under the scheme. And as on this date, whatever is available with DISCOM, 50% will be taken over by the state in this year itself, that is 15-16. So it comes with its own timelines. We're talking about another 5 months before this year ends. And in the next year, another 25% of the debt as on 30th September moves to the state. How do we enable that given the FRBM limits of the state? The principal debt taken over by the state will not be included in the fiscal deficit of the states, only the fiscal deficit. However, whatever interest they incur on that debt which they take over will be within the FRBM limit. So there is some kind of leash on states right from the moment they take over. It is not a full holiday for 2 years. Now, to enable this takeover, states will issue SDLs, state development loans. These will be non-SLR SDLs. Essentially, if you look at the SLR limits of most banks and FIs, they are almost full. So to enable a lot of this debt to be placed in the market, we are issuing non-SLR bonds. These will have typical maturity period of 10 years is the standard. Most SDLs go for 10 years. We are in fact allowing longer term SDLs. In the end, this will be a commercial decision between the bank and the state based on their preference. But the longer the better. And it will have a moratorium on principal repayments for 5 years. So as to enable the DISCOM to come out of the trap.
Give me a minute, Anuj.
Yes.
For those of you who are very, very worried about the impact of this freedom on fiscal deficit, I in fact even interacted with the rating agencies, both in London and in the US. And they all told me that, look, we already factor in the DISCOM debts as a part of the state debt when we are looking at the overall India picture. In fact, if one would go into the 14th Finance Commission of Dr. Reddy, he has alluded to this in his report, that the state's attitude of parking their debt outside their balance sheet, outside the state's debt, has to be recognized as a part of the state debt. So this idea has been drawn from Dr. Reddy's 14th Finance Commission report. In fact, even in 2002, in the FRBM, the debt takeover was not considered as a part of the fiscal deficit. In any case, this is a illness which has accrued over several years. It doesn't make that state any more inefficient in that particular year. We are taking over a past liability. But the good news is that even after this entire takeover, assuming all 30 states take over, the national FRBM limits, there's a national FRBM limit of 25% debt to state GSDP, gross state domestic product. There's a 25% limit which is currently at about 21 point something. So even after, if the entire 75% of the state DISCOM debt is taken over by the states, we still do not at the aggregate breach the country's FRBM limits. So there is no risk of any re-rating or any downgrading of India's investor ratings. In fact, because of the resolution on a more permanent basis, my own sense is this will spur the economic growth cycle and may actually lead to a re-rating of many institutions, particularly the banks of the country.
So numbers are, exact numbers are, even if you assume every single state participates in UDAY and 50% of their DISCOM debt it goes to the state. In this year, that accounts for 1.5% of GDP. So from 21%, 21% is the debt to GDP ratio for all states combined. If you add another 1.5% in this year, that's 22.5, and then the 25% which is taken over, that is about 0.7% of the GDP. So that still, all combined, does not come breach 25%. So in terms of the pricing, this is market pricing, essentially the state SDLs. As I mentioned, the last auction gave 7.92% on a semi-annual compounding basis. You add on another 0.25% for the non-SLR status. Or if you were to start with G6, you're looking at 10-year G-Sec plus 50 basis for state bonds and another 25 basis for non-SLR status. That is what the cap is. If you look at the spreads of the last few RBI auctions, the spreads have actually been lower. So this should be pretty comfortable, but we have put an upper cap just in case.
If the market, go back,
Yes.
next. No, before that. If the market cannot absorb, I've been trying to make inquiries from friends in your marketplace. I'm finding that because there's surplus liquidity in the system, there is good appetite for these bonds. So most states should be encouraged to first offer it to the market. And then should there not be enough appetite for the entire amount, the banks will take it over without any additional stress, because it's after all already loans in their books. So it's not as if there's any outflow of more funds. On the contrary, a good part of their funding will in fact get released. Their capital adequacy constraints will get released. And then and in a lower interest rate cycle where interest rates are reasonably expected to come down, at least the last 1 year has seen that, we do expect that the banks could then sell these in the market gradually at a profit. So it's not as if we are stressing the banks at all. The banks can only stand to gain. They are freed of a potential stress. They are freed of a potential impairment in the value of their assets. Capital adequacy will come down. Their risks profile will reduce. So in a way, government today has addressed the three large sectors. The largest risk profile was in the steel sector with the safeguard duty and possibly some more actions that we are contemplating. The steel sector we believe will continue to improve and bank stress on that will reduce. We've already seen significant movement on the highways sector. That is one sector which is showing probably the fastest growth in the last few months. My colleague and senior minister is doing some outstanding work, resolving all the problems in that sector which we inherited and speeding up execution of projects. And now with this power sector resolution, I think the largest impairment that banks had is by and large going to be addressed, and we can see much stronger bank balance sheets in the days to come.
So the specifics of the debt takeover, the debt will be taken over in the priority of debt already due. So whatever due goes out first, and then starting with the highest cost debt. That is the criteria. The criteria is not whether it is a capital loan, whether it's a short-term working loan. Just focus is on efficiency, remove the highest debt as soon as possible. And this will be done by state giving a grant to the DISCOM, essentially a back-to-back arrangement where the state, any bank, for example, which has given a loan to the DISCOM, will essentially subscribe to state bonds, and state in turn will give a grant.
If the market doesn't absorb.
Yeah,
if the market absorbs, then the market subscribes.
Yeah. And this grant will be given by the state. Ideally, it should be given over 2 years, so in line with the 50% and 25% movement of the debt. But because some states don't have the fiscal flexibility to really take over the entire interest burden in one go, so we have given this flexibility wherein instead of 2 years, they can actually do it over 3 years, wherein in the first year, instead of giving the entire amount as a grant, they can give it as a loan, partly as a loan and partly as a grant, which is equally split. So for example, if suppose the DISCOM has debt of 40,000 crores as on 30th September 2015, and 20,000 crore is being taken over in 15-16. Option A is the simpler option, which is whatever comes in, you give a corresponding grant to the DISCOM. In option B, you have given a 3-year period for giving the grant. So when 20,000 crore is taken over, 10,000 crore is transferred as grant. Half of the amount you're taking over is given as grant to the DISCOM, and the remaining half is given as loan to the DISCOM at the exact interest rate at which you will borrow. So for example, if the state is borrowing at 8%, it will give the loan to the DISCOM at 8%. It cannot give at 10% or 12%, which will essentially take us back to where we were. So focus is on efficiency.
This way the DISCOM balance sheet becomes much stronger with a much, much lower accumulated loss or accumulated interest burden on the loans. The DISCOM balance sheet not only improves, it also has now the loss reduction trajectory becomes fast. It's not only reduction of interest rate from 12, 13, 14 to 8%, it's also the 8% going into the state treasury. So let's say this, I think, is probably broadly where Haryana is, right? So Haryana in 16-17 will start making a profit at the end of this story. Just by doing this, Haryana will make a profit in 16-17 itself. And the additional burden on the Haryana state exchequer would be, even if you take say 30,000, all of it, 8% of 30,000 is about 2,500 crore, right? That DISCOM today on 40,000 is paying 4,800 crores of interest. in this mechanism, that interest will, 2400 will shift to the state, and the DISCOM will be left with about 900 crores of interest servicing. So 4800 reduces to 900. Its current loss is 2,500 crores. It becomes a profit-making DISCOM, and suddenly the whole viability of that DISCOM changes.
Haryana, the interest cost is more than the loss of the DISCOM. So what happens to the 25% which remains with the DISCOM? So just to clarify, there are some residual FRP bonds which are still in the process of being taken over. They will of course be part of this scheme, and so that the states can take the maximum benefit. The debt which remains with the DISCOM will be converted into bonds. So again, DISCOMs will issue bonds. Now, if you look at the market pricing, what we have heard from many of you, from the bankers, is that typically the pricing is state bond plus another 20 basis for the DISCOM bond. And it is important to keep in mind that the DISCOM, the new DISCOM, is essentially a AAA rated entity.
State guarantee. You not mentioned that. This will be state guaranteed bonds, the balance 25%. The balance residual 25% remaining in the DISCOM will be state guaranteed DISCOM bonds in the market. So ultimately the state exchequer will guarantee that that bond will be paid on due dates. And I'm sure you're all aware, India sovereign or India states, and for that matter India PSUs, have never defaulted in any bonds in its history. India has never defaulted. RBI is the conscience keeper of the government's exchequer. And in that sense, since all devolution of funds moves through the Reserve Bank of India to the states, center to RBI to state, or borrowing powers are, limits are allowed by the RBI, they have the ability to ensure that servicing bonds gets priority. So India or any Indian state has never defaulted at any point of time in its history.
Essentially the auto debit mechanism, which is never used, but it's available to RBI to use. And we have again, based on discussions with banks, so of course we expect that DISCOMs will issue bonds, but we have also, when we talk about the banks themselves, if they, in case they are borrowing to the DISCOM, we are capping that rate at base rate plus 0.1%. That is what essentially has emerged from discussions with banks. So in the end, a commercial decision.
With a state government guarantee.
Yeah, with a state government guarantee for both of them. And needless to say, this is only available for state-owned DISCOMs, even DISCOMs which have combined generation and transmission and distribution functions. So Tamil Nadu, for example, has generation and transmission and distribution together. Kerala has all three together. It will not be available for private DISCOMs in Delhi or elsewhere. Also, if you look at the renewable market, one of the obstacles which was not allowing the market to develop as much as it could have been was there was significant number of RPOs which were left in the market. So essentially, many RECs were untraded in the market. They were essentially at the base price remaining in the exchanges. All the DISCOMs who participate in UDAY will also comply with their RPO obligations outstanding since 1st April 2012. This will be done in consultation with MOP, so of course we'll ensure that it's financially feasible for the DISCOMs, but will clear a large number of RPOs, and it will give an impetus to clean energy markets. So it's a big boost again for renewable energy. And again, an example of how power, coal and renewable energy, new and renewable energy all work together. If going forward, how do we ensure that DISCOMs don't borrow indiscriminately and again go back to their previous loss-making trajectory? MOU, so Ministry of Power will sign an MOU with each of the states as well as the DISCOMs in the states, a tripartite agreement which will specify the loss reduction trajectory for each of these DISCOMs. Any financing, loss financing for the DISCOMs will only be available as per the loss trajectory specified in that MOU. That too through DISCOMs backed with state guarantee. So no indiscriminate borrowing by the DISCOM. Even the working capital which is available to the DISCOM is capped to a comfortable 25% of DISCOM's previous year's annual revenue, so that there is no build-up again over
And
there.
banks are going to stop lending to the discoms beyond this period.
Now coming to the specific budgetary hard budget constraint, which will ensure that there is no indiscriminate loss making in the DISCOM even going forward. What we have provided for is gradually up to 50% of the previous year's losses of the DISCOM are taken over by the state. This ensures that even the DISCOM has good amount of incentive to perform. It's not that all of its losses are being taken over by somebody. So 50% with the state, 50% with the DISCOM. Also to ensure that the numbers are all right, we are taking the previous year's losses, which are essentially will be audited. When the audited books are available, they typically come by September. We'll have the final numbers available. On that basis, we'll calculate how much the state has to take over. For 2015-16, the year is already over, and if you talk about previous year, 14-15, of course, states hardly had any control under Uday to improve. Even 15-16, we'll have only 5 months to improve, so we're not taking that loss. After that, from 17-18, it gradually builds up from 5 to 50%.
But I don't see any discom making a loss anytime beyond 18-19. In fact, 17-18, probably 20 or 22%, 20% of the 20 out of 30 discoms will make a profit by 17-18. Most others by 18-19. You may have a problem in 3 or 4 northeastern states or maybe Jammu Kashmir. There are other extraneous reasons you all appreciate. Northeast, Jammu Kashmir, some Naxal areas, but I'm not worried about the Maoist areas because Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, the 4 states affected by Maoism, are by and large committed to making this happen. So I may have 3-4 states whose whole consumption of electricity will not even account for 3-4% of the national consumption.
Additionally, under the existing schemes, Deen Dayal Upadhyay, Gram Jyoti Yojana as well as IPDS, we have additional funding available to states once they perform as per certain milestones, specifically 15% and 5% for special category and other states. So all of that will be available to states because this again will help them meet those qualifying criteria. Plus additional coal at notified prices, additional power, low-cost power with higher capacity utilization from NTPC as well as CPSUs. In the end, in the next 2 years, 2-3 years, we are looking at 15% AT&C loss on an average by 18-19. Reduction in gap between ARR and ACS will disappear, and almost all the discoms will be profitable by 17-18, save a few, 3-4 as Honorable Minister mentioned. The MOUs will essentially govern and will be the operational document which will have details of the scheme. So between the Ministry of Power, state, and if there is single discom, otherwise multiple, it will clearly identify what each party is supposed to do. So for example, from the central government's Ministry of Power's perspective, in terms of supplying coal at notified prices, in terms of enabling coal swaps, linkage rationalization, etc., all of that will be listed down. What the state has to do in terms of financial takeover of the debt of DISCOM, and DISCOMs will have very, very specific targets. In fact, we have already developed a draft MOU with multiple states. Case in point being Rajasthan, where we have identified circle level targets for loss reduction, along with responsibility, along with resources required, team required, etc. And all the activities will be, operational activities will be detailed out in the MOU. So how does it benefit various stakeholders? What do you get out of Uday? As you mentioned, this resolves the weakest link in the power value chain. So a number of initiatives around 24/7 power, rural electrification, renewable energy will now be possible to meet because you will have at the center of the value chain somebody who is able to act to recover the revenues as well as distribute it across. So as you know, 5 crore households in the country are without electricity even today, so they will get power. Electrification of 18,500 villages has not happened even after 68 years of independence, and that is to be achieved over the next, the target for Ministry of Power is over the next 1,000 days. Energy security by primarily using coal as well as renewables. Current account deficit will improve with significant amount of diesel imports for power generation. They will coming down, and overall investments in power sectors will improve, thus creating jobs. If you look at industry and consumers,
Important thing, there are so many stressed assets in the system. Today there are no PPAs in the market. No DISCOM has the ability to open new PPAs and buy power. So there is a very funny situation. You have people who want more power, but the state doesn't have the capacity to buy the power and give it to them. And the general mindset is more you buy, the more loss you incur. So that I expect to change with this. The understanding that if you buy more power and you efficiently serve it to the people, particularly the people who are buying it at or using diesel generators, just the telecom industry alone uses $2 billion worth of diesel for the 600,000 odd towers all across the country. So we are identifying specific areas. Gurgaon, it's rapidly grown and doesn't have the infrastructure to support more power. So I have taken that up on a mission mode with the Haryana government, how we can expand, and we are looking at an investment of $1.7 billion only in Gurgaon to upgrade that infrastructure and rid it from diesel generator sets and inverters. Make it like Mumbai, an island which is secure with 24/7 power. So we are working with a focus on where the results or the benefits can be captured quickly.
another example of lowering cost of power, if you look at a typical NTPC plant, and Mr. Jha can elaborate, a 3000 megawatt plant has a fixed cost of about 2.67 per unit if it is running at 60% PLF. It goes up to 90% PLF, then you are talking about reduction of about 87 paisa. So that's significant savings which will be passed on.
Have you shown them the NTPC full story? No.
So we have the overall.
You know, NTPC alone, just one company, when we are allowing them to swap coal, use coal at the most efficient plant, increase the PLF of efficient plants, shut down if required the inefficient plants and start replacing them, servicing them. With that entire liberal regime of coal availability, NTPC alone can bring down their cost of power by 35 paisa per unit. Now, a company which is making 250 billion units, the saving comes to $1.5 billion every year. And that straight away gets passed on to DISCOMs and hopefully thereon to the consumers. So just NTPC alone saves nearly 8,500 crore rupees. Go back to your regular slide, don't worry. Gujarat calculation comes to 41 paise per unit saving by swapping coal within their plants, rationalizing the supplies, using some of it in the pithead plants. So each state is now excited and working what they can do. Maharashtra has set a target. They want to reduce power tariffs by 1 rupee. I'm sure you're all aware, Maharashtra is the only state in the country where Devendra Fadnavis, Honorable Chief Minister, has actually reduced the industrial tariff soon after becoming Chief Minister. He actually brought it down, probably by 2 rupees a unit or something like that. And almost miserly, if you ask me. Every damn day, there people are troubling me for some benefit or the other to reduce their costs. But that's great for your state. My state also, of course. But it's great for the state that you have a chief minister and his power minister pestering me day and night to save 100 crores here, 50 crores here, 20 crores here. That's why I'm calling him miserly, but it's in the interest of his people, in the interest of his state. And I love that.
And if you were to just add the efficiency improvement gains from the initiatives we spoke about, we are talking about almost 2 lakh crores, 180,000 crores or so, from various initiatives around financial efficiency improvement, AT&C loss reduction, from higher supply.
This is annual saving, $30 billion you can save in India, in the system, Indian system, progressively going up from now until the year 1819. $30 billion reduction. So if in a business as usual case, if I don't do all of these things, you are looking at a $30 billion additional burden, either on the discoms or on the people of India. So this is the difference between the business as usual case, and actually it may be more. So I've taken interest right now only on the 30th September 15 borrowings. By 1819, that would increase by another 40-50 billion dollars. So that would add another $7 billion of interest. So like that, it could have been worse. But this is the business as usual case versus Uday, the savings annually for India and the people of India. Right?
Do you mind explaining this slide line by line?
On which item?
It's a duplication in item number 1 and 2 because you are taking 2%.
Not at all.
No.
Explain it.
No,
Explain
so
it.
it basically.
Boss, 30 साल के बाद इतनी basic error करूंगा, Mr. Modi should sack me today itself.
So
I hope I'm not prophetic.
You're starting with 12% interest cost for the discom. Now that, for example, because the state is taking over, state pays 8%. So 4% on is coming down because the difference between discom and the state interest rate. Plus, the state is not charging back the discom on the debt it is taking over. So even
Within 3 years, they have to convert it to a grant. Then that 27,000 crores goes onto the state's balance sheet. So the first 17,000 is the actual reduction in interest cost. The second 27,000 is what moves from discom payment to the state's payment. And then the state has to service it. So they'll have to be prudent in their own working. All the states put together. And actually, in any case, if they don't do that, with this prudence, they will end up subsidizing the power in an indirect form. Do you get me? Ultimately, if the power cost is not increased, because regulators, as he said earlier, don't allow you to pass on your inefficiency into the customer tariff, and should not also. I would be behind their back if they passed on your inefficiency, discom inefficiency. So then the state would have to, in any case, give that 27,000 crore as a subsidy in some form or the other. All the states put together. So it's a win-win case for the states in any case.
So I'll just very quickly go through some of the other initiatives in distribution sector.
Now go faster.
So Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gram Jyoti Yojana, you have already seen it has an outlay of 75,893 crores. It's for rural electrification, including electrifying the 18,452 villages not electrified as of now. The individual equipment numbers, you have seen the addition of Deen Dayal
Go ahead.
Similarly, on IPDS, focusing on urban infrastructure, outlay of about 65,425,000
1,40,000 crores only these two schemes. 60% of that as a grant from the government of India, and an additional 15% as a further grant if they perform as per our trajectory and as per the MOU, which we will enter into with each of the states. So they get an additional 20,000 odd crores. 10,000 we calculated if some of them miss some of their targets. Or it's only on some
on
components.
5% for few states.
5% in the special. Okay, yeah, in the special category states, you're already giving 90%. Overall, about 10, 11,000 crore additional grants they can get. And if the states perform well, I'm happy to go to the finance minister and increase the outlay on both these schemes. And in a performing sector, no finance minister will refuse me funds. Today, of course, in such deep distress, we have inherited the Indian economy. Despite that, the finance minister has committed nearly $10 billion on both these schemes, more than $10 billion.
So if you look at, for example, village electrification, we already, in the first 6 months, we have already electrified about 2,677 villages. And in the next 1,000 days, we are looking at completing.
By the way, this is nothing that has happened overnight. I wanted to mention it when transmission speed up, power generation capacity increase, all that came up. Also in village electrification. Earlier, the whole process was so lethargic that things would happen at their own pace. So now, I mean, in some states, there were projects which were to be completed 5 years ago, but had not even started. The tendering was not over when I became minister. So we've gone like a absolute ton of bricks on everybody and are monitoring it relentlessly. That's how the transmission lines are getting completed. We're getting environmental clearances, new mines are opening, power generating capacity is coming up, rural electrification is ramping up. Go back to the previous slide. Against 1,405 done last year when we had just taken over, or 1,197 in the year before we took over. This year alone, we will do 7,000 villages. And next year, 11,500. And Prime Minister has given me 1,000 days on 15th August 2015 to complete these 18,500 villages. Our own internal target is to complete it in 730 days. We are not even going to hopefully take 1,000 days. There are about 3,500 which are off-grid and balance 15,000 grid connected. And yeah, see that we've got these 309 young, bright engineers, youngsters, supercharged. I had an interaction like this with them for 2-3 hours the other day. I tell you, it was heart-rending to see the enthusiasm of these 309 Gramin Vidyutikaran Abhyantas, we call them. They were ready to go on the field and just work day and night and get it done. And what was their motivation? All of them have been engaged through a very transparent process, but they all come from areas where there is no electricity. So we've got them from Jharkhand, from Orissa, from Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh. So I was randomly talking to them, and I had all the 18 state power secretaries on video conferencing while we were talking to these Gram Vidyutikaran Abhyantas. A boy got up from a small village. He said, all my life, I have not seen electricity. So his motivation was to be seen, to be believed. Yeah, it's all online. So all that monitoring is online. You can go onto it also. What's the website?
Gramin Vidyutikaran, that's the app. So you put in these words and you will get the app in Android and you can download.
What do you have to put in?
Gramin Vidyutikaran, the name of the app.
And you can load that app. तो मेरे phone पे तो लगाओ अभी तक आया नहीं है. Oh, so I'll have to first buy a new phone. It's not yet on Apple.
Link.
Get another Apple one also done.
Yeah. So for the 3,000 odd villages which will be under distributed decentralized generation, again there is a scheme.
What are you doing?
There is a scheme to basically cover all these households, and it's again a very transparent mechanism wherein we will use a reverse auction methodology with standard specifications to buy the equipment. And
by the way, you know, a lot of people are trying to electrify Africa and saying the UN has adopted one of the Sustainable Development Goals as affordable energy access for all by 2030. We are trying to do that by 2022. 24/7 affordable energy access. And hopefully even earlier if I get the DISCOMs supporting me. And the important thing is, go back on the earlier slide. We are not giving them some small unit which gives them a little lighting or a mobile charger. So the West thinks that if they give some little bit of lighting and a mobile charger, they've done a great service to the backward or underdeveloped countries. When we are planning for even off-grid solution, we are looking at a 200-watt solution. So it gives them sufficient lighting, fans, mobile charging, a television, small LED television, possibly a LED-driven fridge, refrigeration. So we want them to get the feeling of being connected with electricity. And in the tariff policy, we are providing, otherwise most people don't like to invest in microgrids, that someday the grid will reach there, then you are in trouble. What do you do with your microgrid? So we are providing specifically in the tariff policy that if and when the grid reaches any off-grid solution, it will necessarily have to buy the power from that microgrid. Or if it's a household solution, they'll be allowed net metering. They can take the benefit of the grid as well as continue to use their off-grid solution. So we have thought through the process right down to its last mile security for investors in the power sector, even in the microgrid investment sector.
Something around the policy interventions. In terms of Electricity Act amendment, there is segregation of carriage from content. I think many of you have seen the draft of the act. This will again further help the DISCOMs improve.
Subject to the states wanting it. There's a little bit of resistance from some of the states on this. So it'll of course be, we'll have to have the states on board to allow the flexibility to have 2 or more operators operating in an area. But I'm fairly confident that once a few states, and I'll get the BJP states on board quickly, start working on this pattern, then we'll have other states emulating it.
Specifically on DISCOMs, again, if you look at the last provision, it gives a mandate to regulators for suo motu proceedings in determination of tariffs. So if there are delays in the part of DISCOM, they can start the proceedings. Again, helps the sector. Tariff policy coming out very, very soon. We are talking about the number of initiatives, including, for example, setting up of coal washery rejects based projects on cost plus basis. So number of areas which are very close to mines but are still dark. Today they generate power, but it's sold outside. Even they can be lit up. Renewable energy
There are
generation.
3 main thrusts, if I may summarize this slide. 1, environment. So whether it's coal washery rejects processing, whether it's using the wastewater that can be reprocessed and used by nearby thermal plants, so that clean water can be used to service the people of India, and processed wastewater goes into thermal plants. Whether it's a compulsory procurement of waste to energy, wherever cities process their waste into energy. So one is the thrust on environment and Swachh Bharat. Also a renewable generation obligation on any new capacity coming up. We expand the renewable energy hopefully to 15% of energy consumed. In terms of installed capacity, it will be huge. It may even cross 50% of the installed capacity by 2000 or 40% by 2022. And in the years to come, even grow more rapidly if storage becomes more viable. Then it has provisions for pump storage. It has provisions to convert some of your idle power plants into a peaking reserve or spinning reserve plant. So a lot of thought has gone into the new tariff policy. Within a few weeks, you'll get a full presentation on a new tariff policy, hopefully. And of course, the effort to expand the generation capacity, plan for the future. Currently, if you plan too far ahead into the future, So let's say in transmission, I want to plan up to 2030. But if I do that, I could have a CAG report against me saying, why did you invest now? This line is not being used fully or optimally. So you wasted national resources. I believe the country, a progressive country, a developing country, a country which wants to become a superpower, as my party president Amit Shah said, a Vishwa Guru, a superpower amongst nations, then you'll have to plan well in advance. You can't have a laggard, a power sector or a transmission capacity which is a laggard. So demand will come first and then we'll invest. I should always have surplus capacity in generation, transmission, distribution, so that we are also providing electricity connection 15 days from the date an application is made. So each state is drawing up a roadmap, how in 15 days guaranteed electricity connection, which I ultimately want to bring down to hopefully power on tap.
Very quickly, talking about renewable energy initiatives, I think all of you know this, the capacity expansion programs. We're talking about this will in turn lead to investments of about $110 billion only in solar and wind, and another $10 billion in other renewable energy sources. Again, a very similar story to how you can increase the overall efficiency to bring down tariff and prices. The famous 4.63 rupees NTPC just got through reverse e-auctions on 4th November
at 1:30 in the night, the bidding stopped. At this price, we could look at much larger capacities in solar. This may be plus or minus. In fact, I personally think if we do a little more innovation on this and little technology improvements, this may fall further.
So the last slide, looking at the uday of investments in the sector, if we estimate by each part from renewables, generation, transmission, etc., we are talking about overall potential of $250 billion, and parts of these were earlier uncertain because the distribution sector was not performing well. But with Uday, we believe that all of these can become very, very attractive investment avenues, and I'm sure you will also look at it likewise. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Anuj.
That was a very excellent presentation. Can we have the lights, please?
It was a little long, but we wanted to share as much detail as we can.
Lights, please. No, can we have the lights at the hall, please? Yeah. So as said, we will begin with a Q&A session. The floor is open as the minister suggested. When it's for the questions, it's for the suggestions, or some observations for you to make. We'll begin with the investors first, and anyone from the investors may begin there. Please, go ahead, sir. Please introduce yourself. Brief questions, brief introduction, please. Thanks a lot.
I'm Manish Banthia from ICICI Prudential Mutual Fund.
Hold the mic near your mouth, please.
I'm Manish Banthia from ICICI Prudential Mutual Fund. My question is on the SEB plans which you have. You said that you will convert the loans into non-SLR bonds and the remaining 25% into state guaranteed bonds. Right now, the banks have limits on the HTM, and the HTM only covers the SLR bonds. And RBI has been reducing SLR of banks and has a pathway of reducing SLR. Banks already have a lot on the AFS books, available for sale book. And with these bonds getting converted from loans into bonds, the banks, books on AFS will only expand, which means that their variability on profitability, quarterly profitability will increase. And banks have been reluctant to do that. That's been my experience while talking to them.
I discussed a lot with the banks on this particular issue, but look at it from where they are today and the stress that they are facing today compared to what the position will be going forward. And I've also seen that there are 25 banks in this whole story. So each bank, when you see the figure, by itself is not a earth-shattering figure. It's the combined figure that looks really threatening. As regards whether HTM limits will be relaxed, we cannot, the Indian government or the cabinet cannot take a decision on that. That will have to be a decision the banks will have to approach RBI. But my own sense, and I've been talking to several insurance, provident fund companies, pension companies, my own sense is there's so much appetite that beyond a year, year and a half, I don't see any banks holding on to any of these. Because with this long tenor assured return at these levels, I see a lot of appetite for these bonds in the marketplace. That's the feedback I've got. In fact, some of the investment bankers also tell me we could take out significant amount of paper in the next 2 or 3 months. There's too much liquidity chasing investment. But I don't know. We'll let the market forces determine that. And at least in the short run, with interest rates being the way they are, I think the banks only stand to gain.
Sure, thank you.
I'm Ashok Ansari, Chairman of Hon'ble. I will take this question little forward
Please give a mic to them.
because they will more concerned about the banks only. That one way the debt will go off the books of the bank. That is one transaction. It means their advances, their loans will be fully satisfied.
And they'll sleep peacefully at night.
So this is one thing that NPA management will be done very well, and the bank's position will be very healthy financially. The other part of it is whether the same banks are going to subscribe to these bonds or somebody else,
I
as you
think he
said.
explained it quite well. Do you still think there's something to be explained on that?
Yeah, in fact,
What he explained was, these bonds the states can offer into the market. If the market takes these bonds at a price which is less than the cap, then they'll sell it in the market. If they are unable to do that, the same bank will take it over and at some point will offload it into the market whenever they see the opportune time.
but as far as the advances is concerned, it will be shown as paid off.
Yeah, not shown. It will be paid off.
I mean, it will be paid off irrespective of whether the same bank is subscribing to the
Yeah,
bond
of
or
course.
somebody else is subscribing.
Yeah. That
that
money
solves the major part of the
will be escrowed only for paying the bank's dues,
Thank you.
even if the market takes it over.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. I am Atul Tiwari from.
You'll have
Citi-
to hold, guys, please hold the mic to your mouth.
Yeah. Hello. Yes, sir. I am Atul Tiwari from Citigroup Global Markets.
Yeah, go ahead. It's
Yeah.
working.
Sir, I have two questions. First, which states are not on board as of today with this scheme?
All are on board. I just had the Power Ministers Conference 5th and 6th. We have to work out the nitty-gritties. I said it up front. It's a process which will be, to some extent, also through mutual negotiations, trajectory of loss reduction, takeover, all of that. But everybody unanimously welcomed it. If one or two states in the end have some hesitation on any political consideration, I don't worry about the national scenario based on one or two states.
And sir, my second question is on advisory to banks to not lend to loss-making discoms beyond a point in the future. Is it encoded in the rule book or is it? Or
The
does it
RBI
depend
has
on-
already done that.
Okay, so
The RBI has written a letter to all the banks to stop lending to discoms in the current situation. And in the cabinet note, we have already brought in a provision. Of course, we can't micromanage the banks, but we've said that banks need not lend. And I think bankers are sensible enough to know what's good for them. Somebody wants to, join the funeral, that's his problem. I cannot now micromanage the banks also.
So, sir, after a couple of years, do you think that this hard constraint will remain in place irrespective of whoever is in the power? Or because
I think so, because nowadays elections can be won or lost on good management of the state, of the economy. And if the people of India decide or choose to vote a party which does not follow what is good for the nation, then I cannot pre-decide what any future government will do to our decisions today. But don't worry, we are here for a long term. We're not looking at going away soon.
Best
we
we come to a question from
Yeah. Hi, this is Giriraj from SKS Capital. So my first question is like, we will see step up increase in the tariffs in the near term from the states.
That the regulator decides. The government of India does not dictate tariffs. We can add an enabler's role to ensure that tariffs are set on time. So you saw the tariff policy and electricity amendment act, what changes we are bringing. Also, we are trying to reduce the inefficiencies. Once it's only regular operating cost increase, then I think regulators will find it much easier to pass on that tariff increase. But the old age so-called reform theory that you just increase tariffs by 2 rupees in Rajasthan or 1.5 rupee in UP, I think are quite impractical. No government is going to do that kind of political suicide. So by dictating those kind of terms or hoping for a utopian position that Rajasthan or UP or Haryana can massively increase their tariffs is impractical. But if you improve the service, then the moderate increases are more palatable.
My second is a question cum suggestion. The RBI has given a limit of 50,000 crore to the state government for FII bonds. Will we work with the RBI to increase that limit since we have that number large? And the suggestion would be, can we utilize cash-rich company money like Coal India sitting on a lot of money? Can you utilize, instead of banks subscribing to those, can we utilize Coal India subscribe to those bonds?
It's a Maharatna, they can make their own decisions.
But
If
being
they
it is
find
under
the
your
returns
company,
is
your
that
other
better.
parent.
But Coal India has very aggressive investment plans, as some of which I told you. Opening new mines, railway lines, washeries, crushing, improving quality. So I think let each PSU take its own decision. But the other suggestion is a welcome suggestion. We'll follow it up.
Yeah,
On
please,
RBI,
third-
on RBI thing, 50,000 crore?
he has a supplementary.
On RBI thing, we said 50,000 crore of FII limit. Will we
Yeah,
work?
I've noted that.
Thank you.
So,
Please.
this is Naveen from Goldman Sachs.
Okay.
So, can you share your capex estimates for Coal India? We have a target of about.
That is for the company to do. As a minister, I don't decide their capex plan. They do that, they give you regular guidance, right?
We don't have a long-term guidance from Coal India, unfortunately. We just have a one-year
Please
guidance.
speak into the mic, guys. I
Sorry.
can't hear you.
We don't have a long-term guidance from Coal India for a billion-ton target. We just have a one-year guidance on capex from Coal India.
So that you discuss with Mr. Day afterwards, persuade him to start giving longer term guidance.
Thank you.
Please, we take a question from you.
Sir,
Please.
Hiren Dasani from Goldman Sachs. Hiren Dasani from Goldman Sachs Asset Management. Two questions. One on the PFC REC, if you can give a breakup of that 4.4 lakh crore. And the general fear is that the loans which were yielding earlier interest of 12% plus will now getting interest of 8% or so. So there is a straight 4% yield reduction. And that is what I think led to the reaction of the market, if I may speculate on that. And the second question is on the renewable side, sir, with the solar tariffs coming down so rapidly, what are your thoughts on what will happen to the wind? And if you can comment on that. Thank you.
Each renewable energy source has its own ability or traction. So I think solar also has its own problems of only daytime power, large amount of transmission network, which in the night time cannot be used. So if we can have solar wind hybrids, it becomes a very attractive proposition. Wind often gives you power in the monsoon months, more particularly, when coal transportation or coal generation production gets stressed. So nature has actually provided a slot or a space for everybody. So in my opinion, wind will have its own space, biomass will have its own space. I just directed my colleagues, one of the problems of pollution in Delhi, and I've just come with viral and everything from Delhi this morning, is the amount of burning of rice husk in Punjab, which then goes into the atmosphere and comes to Delhi. So we are now, on the flight back from Cochin, the flight into Cochin we were discussing Uday, and the flight back from Cochin we were finalizing the tariff policy. So you heard that na sone dunga, na sounga, na sone dunga. Huh? It was a continuation of the na khaunga, na khane dunga, and you've seen us run all our projects with the highest degree of corruption-free transparency and honesty. Same way we don't spend flight times relaxing, we work on our flight times. But in that, this issue was flagged off of pollution, because when we were landing in Delhi, my colleagues told me, look at the smog. And so they are working now on what we can do. We can't move thousands of tons or lakhs of tons of rice husk in a short time. So I've told them, see if we can devise a moving vehicle which can process this rice husk rapidly across places wherever this rice husk is generated. It's just a thought. I'm just telling you how we are innovatively trying to find solutions to problems. As regards PFC and REC, I still remember the day they both came to my office in panic about exactly what you mentioned while we were finalizing the terms of the cabinet note. And I saw an opportunity in that to further spur the economy. So what we've done is we understand that they are not deposit-taking institutions. So obviously they cannot on-lend at 8 or 8.5% when they themselves are borrowing at 7.5 or 8%. So it'll be a very skewed balance sheet, adding to the debit and credit side and completely messing up the capital adequacy of REC and PFC. So we have provided that when any REC PFC loan is taken over, it will first be offered to the market, and in consultation with the banks, and I have all the banks on board on that, because they appreciated this will be an impediment to the final resolution. And in any case, most of them have subscribed to REC PFC bonds. So don't want these companies to fail. So it's been discussed that we'll first offer it to the market. Whatever is absorbed in the market, great. The rest will be taken over by the banks in the proportion to which their DISCOM debt is going to be resolved out of the Uday scheme, and then they can on-sale it into the market in the days and months to come. So that has been provided for. This will release significant funds in the next 2.5 years, or next 1.5, 2 years in REC PFC, which, considering that the bigger demand going forward initially is in renewables, is in transmission, it's in distribution, can then be lent to these sectors, giving us boost to the economy, giving a boost to investments in the power sector. So we'll almost be unlocking, I think, $30 billion. And both these companies have capital adequacies which are quite high. So they have the ability to expand. So very often people ask me, where will the money for $250 billion come from? Where will renewables get more funds? So we have enough liquidity in India, and wherever I go in the world, I find people interested in coming to India with significant investments, both equity and debt. And some of the colleagues sitting here are aware of it, because I've had discussions with many people sitting in this room on that. And I don't know what Goldman Sachs' own view is, but I do know that you put up the first 1,000 crores for Sumant Sinha to set up Renew. And I see that as a success story already.
We take a question from here, sir, please. Can you get the
This
mic here, please?
Dushyant
Okay,
Dave
you are.
from Puneet Advisory. Yeah, hello. This is Dushyant Dave from Puneet Advisory. Minister, it was a brilliant presentation. Thanks for this interaction. My first question is that funding is definitely doesn't seem to be a problem, especially if you allow the suggestion which was just now mooted was a FII investment, which is presently restricting the limits on the government bonds. And if state government bond is a AAA bond, I think the money will flow. The second, the entire, I think the premise of your presentation on the reduction of the loss from AS Life is 48% to 15%. Don't you think there is a serious social, political and law and order issues to bringing this laws to the control? Or it's
Dushyant,
not?
I acknowledge it. So maybe in some of the Maoist areas, some of the deep jungles, some of the hills on the top, maybe Jammu Kashmir, there may be certain pockets. But you will also appreciate that these are the pockets which are already energy starved. There my bigger challenge is to reach power. No, the AT&C loss happens when there is no power, when there is power available. These places to first have to reach energy access. So I don't see any law and order problem. Prime Minister Modi, when he was Chief Minister in Gujarat, You have all seen it. He did that and successfully did that. And he turned around loss-making discoms. 13 years ago, his discom was making 2,500 crore losses. 13 years ago. Today's terms, probably that would be 25,000 crores. I don't know. Or 20,000. But today, Gujarat discoms are all in profit. So, it needs political will, and fortunately, most states are on board on that. The one or two, if I have a challenge, I, for one, don't get fazed by these kind of challenges of smaller nature. Then I work in partnership with those states to find better solutions for that. Maybe we'll use the JAM, the Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and Mudra Yojana as a combination to see how we can get more people involved in our efforts to reduce AT&C losses through direct transfer of benefits.
First we take a question here and then we'll come to you, gentlemen. Please.
Good evening, sir. Prakhar Sharma from CLSA. Going back to the REC PFC doubts, besides the Discom loans, they were primarily lenders to both the Gencos and the Transco related capex also. So there has also been an apprehension, or if I can say a doubt, what happens to the pricing of these loans. Could you clarify about how you want to take the stance on those loans?
There's no change in that. That continues as it is. Though we have made one provision, which also I hope you will appreciate, is that now there will not be another window open that Discom has been plugged. So you park it in the Genco or the Transco. So we have said the total costs of the states, Gencos and Transcos, have to be passed on to the Discoms. So that has also been provided. Specifically, there is a separate bullet point on that part, that Transco and Genco cost recovery will have to be a part. And we have also offered the Genco, state Gencos, support from NTPC, wherever they require, to improve the operational efficiency of the state Gencos. Also, we are allowing liberal coal swapping. So many state Gencos can cut down some of their inefficient plants. It's a very logical thing. Fixed cost is a given. It's only the variable cost now that has to be seen. So I found in many states a misnomer that a 30-year-old plant power is cheaper than a new plant. But when I explained to them that you remove the fixed cost and look at only the variable cost, you suddenly found a new efficient plant far better than the inefficient plants which consume more coal, give out more pollution, etc., etc. So this flexibility in the whole system is being appreciated by the states, and they can only get it if they come under Uday. Somebody asked me privately, why will states sign up? I don't know, Vallabh Bansali the other day was telling me that tera naam threat minister ban gaya. I don't know why I got that.
Yes, please. Once again.
Good evening, sir. This is Arun from HSBC. Here, sir.
Yes, sir.
So my question is, thanks for first time for introducing a new energy in power sector. That's a new energy. For last 2 years, we're into a kind of a lack of energy. But we had a very aggressive target for
Please hold it closer to your point.
You had set up a very aggressive target for DT metering, feeder metering, and you said you want to have all it on your desk. Now, as we all know, the current Lex T Act does not provide that into the central domain. This is a state subject. Are we proposing any change to the tariff policy?
Every state is excited about it because I am funding most of it in any case.
So, but the question is that would you have a direct access to monitoring the
DTs? Oh yeah. Data sharing is not a problem. They all share their full data.
And will there be rewards and carrots and stick built in?
That's right. I don't know why we didn't add that slide. But there is some mention briefly. So those states which perform well, they could get more coal at notified prices. They could get additional funds under IPDS, under Power System Development Fund, PSDF, under Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana. So see, it's in your mind. If I take it that, look, it's a federal structure and I can't do anything, the states have to decide, then obviously I can't do anything. But you will all appreciate that there's so much that there is going to be continuous interaction between states and the center. I have thousands of megawatt of unallocated power, which is given to different states. Now that unallocated power can be given more to states which are efficient. So there's so many things where center and state have to work in partnership, which Prime Minister Modi always articulates as Team India. That if we all work together, then it's a win-win for both, and ultimately the people benefit. But I'm getting very good support, including a state like UP. The adjectives they have used for Uday were most heart-rendering and heartwarming.
Just one more question, sir. On the tariff policy, which is expected next 2 weeks.
Not 2 weeks, few weeks.
Okay, sir. Whatever. Are we expecting the introduction of medium-term PPAs? Because that's what we have been hearing.
We've made it very liberal now. Medium-term PPAs are being made absolutely liberal.
They'll
be at par with long-term PPAs.
In terms of coal supply from Coal India?
In terms of everything, at par with long-term PPAs.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.
And we are strengthening the ability of excess power generating capacity. There's going to be so many announcements, you'll keep hearing them periodically. So wait and watch.
Thanks for all the new energy
Jay,
in
what
the
is
sector.
that?
Thanks.
Story अभी आगे बाकी है. आगे बहुत story बाकी है. Picture अभी बाकी है.
Please.
Hi, this is Sanjay Jain from Motilal Oswal. I have 3 questions. Firstly, on the transmission, you talked
Anuj, your presentation wasn't good enough if there are so many more questions. McKinsey में तुमने जो सीखा वो कम था.
Okay. See, you talked about transmission projects being given on tariff-based competitive bidding, about 1 lakh crore.
Most of it. In fact, I'm changing the rules. Earlier, there were a lot of exceptions for transmission projects to be given on cost plus. And that was a complete, it was source of a lot of angst and complaint. And transmission sector wasn't picking up. So everywhere the soft spot, give it to PGCIL. Now we are changing it even in the states and the center. The rule will be competitive bidding. And if you are not doing ICB, then you'll have to give reasons in writing on file why you're not doing it.
Okay. Will this also be applicable for projects like Green Corridor, which have to be done?
Yes, that was earlier given by me only on nomination basis to PGCIL. I'm possibly going to reverse that decision.
And what about HVDC line? Will this also be applicable for
Sorry?
that? High voltage.
And PGCIL will bid in it. That will bring competition, fair pricing, customer will benefit, and PGCIL will also become a more efficient. They're already a fantastic organization, but they'll become more efficient. And penalties are going to be very harsh for delays. Yeah. What are the
Great. Second question is on clean energy cess. You put a clean, progressively for the last few years, the governments have put clean
4
energy.
times, 50 to 200.
Correct.
On coal.
On coal. My question is that, why we put clean energy cess only on coal? Why not on other methods of greenhouse gas generations? Like, for example, let me just...
Well, I thought all of you were complaining, why are we increasing excise and all on petroleum products? That is an indirect green energy tax on petroleum products.
No, why I am raising this issue is because you are encouraging a lot of efficiency into the system. And there are states, like they like to put a power plant in their own state, even if they don't have energy. So they're transporting coal all the way thousands kilometer, 1500 kilometer, and putting up power plants. So shouldn't we build in some system to discourage such kind of an activity? And instead of putting cess only on the coal, let's put cess on transportation of coal.
It already
as well.
is there. There is a 400 rupee per ton cess for long distance transportation of coal. I am in fact talking to the Honorable Railway Minister, and he's promised me, not this year, but gradually, he'll reduce that, because these plants have already come in, and you must appreciate, states want energy security also. There's a very deep element of energy security that each state wants for itself. So some of these plants coming up were quite sensible decisions. It's, I'll give you an example. When I wanted to auction the coal mines, I found a lot of pressure from the coal-bearing states not to auction it or not to give that coal to power plants, because the pricing is low. For other uses, you get higher royalties and higher pricing. So they said, no, don't give our coal to the power plants, other states. There I had to use the analogy that after all, this is a national resource. That's why it's kept under the central government, not with the state. Tomorrow, Punjab, Haryana can't say, I will not give grain to Chhattisgarh and Orissa. and I'll keep it all myself because it's my resource, and I'll not sell in Chhattisgarh, Orissa. So national resources have to be given everywhere, but it gives me that element of security to have power plants in my own state.
Just one last question.
Yes,
regarding, I mean, this is a statement made by the ex-chairman of NTPC also. Isn't this the right time to deregulate the power sector at all, altogether?
After he completes his term, every chairman and every minister becomes wiser.
Why I'm raising this point is because there are a lot of PPAs which have been signed
I
at
think
very
today
high rates.
India's best run power generating company is NTPC. I have often on many occasions said it, and I'm repeating it today. This reform and restructuring are two words which unfortunately the investor community has very limited understanding of. I'm sorry I'm saying it. As I said, once you stop doing investment banking and don a new dress and a new job, you become wiser. So having completed my life with all of you, I now realize how silly we are when we say reform is privatization. Restructuring is break Coal India into 8 parts. If I had broken Coal India into 8 parts, all the benefits of coal rationalization, that 20,000 crore that Anuj just showed you, would have been lost. They would have all been independent entities. If I privatize NTPC, one of the finest run companies in India today, probably one day it would join the list of stressed projects all across the country, donning the landscape of the country, because they are quite ill managed. So I don't think private sector is some panacea for all the problems of the country or the world. There are instances where even internationally, public sector assets have been privatized and then had to go back to the government. You know, Bama Lorry, by the way, was taken over from the government, from the private sector, because the then owners, and you should look back into history, why and under what circumstances the government took over that company. It runs a damn travel agency. The travel agency had been taken over by the government along with its other assets to bail out an industrialist many years ago. For what consideration, God knows. At least we don't do those type of things. So private sector is not some, doodh ka dhula or some great virtuous operator. As I said earlier, it's not the ownership of a corporation. It's the vision and the management that determines success or failure. Temasek and GIC can do wonderful work. Singapore ports can do wonderful work. And America had to bail out all their companies after the Lehman collapse. All their so-called private sector automakers, banks, investment funds, investment companies, the Freddie Macs and Fannie Mae's or whatever, all of that. So this, I think, is a completely skewed and flawed understanding of reform and restructuring. What we are doing today is true reform and restructuring.
Yes, please. Gentleman there. Yep. Inam.
Aditya Singhania from Enam Holdings. I had 2 questions, sir. One, just some clarification on the MOU that you mentioned that states and DISCOMs will sign with the Ministry of Power. Should we understand that a state cannot borrow for losses without this MOU? And will some contours around this?
I think the banks have already stepped lending to the DISCOMs. So you'll see a faster MOUs coming up. We already have the template with me. So all background work was done while we were working out the scheme. Our work with the states, I've had a series of meetings with each of the loss-making DISCOMs, right from Chief Minister down. My teams, he has gone. You have gone to which states?
Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand.
Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, he has been working. Jyoti Arora, another JS, is working with Haryana and Rajasthan. The Honorable Coal Secretary himself, Mr. Anil Swarup, and that's why I say it's a organic entity that's working to find a solution. Has been sitting down with UP to find a quick resolution to their problems. All of us are working as a team. And the support we are getting from the states is outstanding. Not outstanding, but outstanding.
Yes.
Thank you. Just one more thing on the REC and PFC, just if I may ask on that. You clarified that Genco and Transco loans will not be changed in terms of the interest rate pricing, but presuming that the SEBs ask for those on their own, how would that be looked at?
SEBs ask for?
Ask for the reduction in interest rate given that their
The
balance
banks
sheets
will have to decide, or the SEBs can float bonds and reprice their loans. So banks will have to be sensible about it. If the market is falling, unless there's a lock-in clause on interest, I don't know, that's a bilateral transaction between banks and the funders.
The bulk of the loans are with PFC and REC for the Gencos and Transcos.
So either they do their business more efficiently or they lose that business.
Thank you.
I can assure you REC PFC is absolutely capable of running efficiently, maintaining its profitability, and becoming an engine of growth in this country, becoming an engine to revive the power sector and put in that much needed capital to expand the renewable energy sector, expand generation, transmission, distribution rapidly. And if required, we'll support REC PFC even further.
Yes, please.
Thank you, sir, for this interaction opportunity. This is Manan Shah from KPMG. My question was with regard to an interview you did with Economic Times, which was published on the 26th of October, where you said that the message is loud and clear. All investments in the power sector will be, the government thrust will be on the renewable sector. Now, this has caused some flutter in the conventional sector space with investors existing and incoming. Just wanted you to clarify on this, sir, that are you saying that government is not encouraging greenfield investments in conventional, or consequently only existing under development or under construction projects in the conventional sectors are the play for them, at least in the next 5 years?
See, there's a short-term, medium-term and long-term story. The current situation, and in a way, I'm immensely pleased with it, though some media houses keep writing about the plant load factor being very low currently in the thermal generation. But I'm pleased because that gives me the ability to ramp up quickly as the energy needs of India, as industrialization, economic growth happens. I'm delighted to inform all of you that the current capacity already existing, the projects in the pipeline, which will come up in the next 4 or 5 years, which already have either mines or clearances, ordered machinery, or which are currently in the process of being ordered in Andhra Pradesh, in Telangana, certain projects are coming up. All of this capacity, coupled with energy efficiency, reduction in AT&C losses, and renewable energy, which we are giving a big thrust to, and the 10 to 12 UMPPs that we'll be bidding out. And lastly, the over 25-year capacity, which is going to be phased out and replaced with super efficient, supercritical plants. When you add all of this together, that itself gives us the ability to double our power capacity in the next 7 years. Actually more than double, but I'm being conservative. Just look at thermal. You're at 59-60% national. You can go up to 92%. 1.5 times to wahi ho jayega. Renewable, we are making 60 billion units of renewable. We are scaling it up 5x in 7 years to 300 billion units. The 12 UMPPs, even if half of them come up, it's 24,000 megawatt. And each megawatt can add about 6 million units. Right? So you're talking 150 billion units of energy. The old plants, we have 30,000 megawatt of over 25-year plants. Even if half of them replace, but they'll replace with supercritical plants now. So you'll have another 30 gigs, which could add another 180 billion units. So I'm doing very careful analysis of where the focus has to be. And therefore I believe that this proliferation of small plants, 100 megawatt, 200, 150, 250, will be quite uneconomical and unviable. We'll have to look at supercritical technology with the concerns of environment, and we'll have to look at economies of scale coming into place. So I'm doing an intervention where I'll allow existing capacities to expand rapidly so that they can use common infrastructure, use extra land. There was a time when NTPC, each plant would acquire 4,000, 5,000 acres. All that land is available. I can ramp up and expand faster there rather than struggling to convince an unyielding opposition who's decided to be obstructionist in the development of India. So rather than focusing my energies there, I'll use existing capacities, existing infrastructure and ramp up faster and keep the power tariffs low in the country. So we are going about it with clinical precision to keep costs affordable and ensure 24/7 energy access, and larger focus will be on renewables, on transmission, on last mile connectivity, where there's urgent need for more investments.
Yeah, please. Can you get the mic here, please?
There's so much more.
A few more, sir.
बाकी इनसे पूछना ना, ये सब है अभी while we are having tea. I had actually said we should have dinner, but many of people advised me that it's Dhanteras and people have to go back home. But I had forewarned that it's going to be a longish, because I want to once and for all dispel your apprehensions about the power sector.
Thank you, sir, for the great presentation. This is Alpesh from Motilal Oswal. First question is, out of the 4.4 lakh crores funding which were been done by the various financial institutions and all, can you just give us the breakup? How much is done by PFC, REC, banks, state government?
It's all public knowledge. It's transparent. You can find it out on the websites.
The problem over here is the data is not, some of the discoms are not properly audited. So whatever the information that we have is from the rating agencies.
We have a slide on that, na? 31st March का कोई पुराना slide होगा ना data? This is audited? You can take it from him, whoever is interested afterwards.
Yeah. Okay.
Or we'll put it on. We can't put this. These are unaudited. March is audited. Why don't we ask all the banks and PFC, REC to send us their figures? In a few days, we'll put it out on the website.
Okay, and just based on this discussion, it looks like out of the $70 billion of loans that REC and PFC put together has around $30 billion.
How much loan?
70 billion.
17 or
70. Around 4.3 lakh crores.
They
right?
don't
The
have such a big balance sheet.
Yeah, the combined loan book of REC PFC is 4.3 lakh crores.
I didn't know that. Is that correct? कितना है आपका loan book कितना है? 160. You. And he?
4.3, yeah.
Education for me. I didn't realize they've expanded so much.
Okay, so it looks like because the transmission and the distribution loans which are being reported by them, it works out to be almost 1.6 lakh crores. So would the entire book be impacted because of this?
Transmission and generation we are not touching.
No,
sir.
transmission and distribution, because the large part of that T&D segment is...
Only DISCOM loans are being transferred, and that gives them the ability to use that money for new investments.
Perfect. So what would be that number if you can, because there is a lot of confusion related to this particular segment.
We'll work it out and put it out. Make an advisory to let the world know. No problem. We'll put it out.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, let's take a question from the lady here, please. Please hand over the mic there.
But that is DISCOM there. It'll be about $20 billion. It'll be about $20 billion, which will, over a period of the next 2 years, get converted to bonds and taken over by the market or the banks, which will give them the freedom to lend $20 billion fresh for new investments in the market. I don't think there's any significant impact because there's enough demand, particularly in the renewable energy sector, where there's so much business coming up.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, sir. I'm Hetal Sonpal from...
And by the way, it's the REC PFC loan book which is the lowest price in the DISCOM. It's the bankers who used to charge more. Their loans are pretty low. So they'll probably land up making more money, and they'll not have the tension of what will happen to these discom loans going forward. So their potential stress or impairment or NPA will almost become nil. And added to that, because this will open up discoms buying more power, the other assets on the Genco side will become safer investments for the entire banking sector. I'm told that itself is another $30-35 billion of everybody had thought potential stress coming into the banking sector, including REC PFC. What? That must be to 2-3 discoms who are really in a bad shape, and they must have squeezed their neck.
Please, madam.
Yeah, sir, I'm Hetal Sonpal from Trust Investment Advisors. My question is, will all the states who are signing the MOU, would it be compulsory or optional to take up 75% even if they are not loss-making?
If they sign the MOU, then it's compulsory. If they don't sign the MOU, then there's no compulsion, it's optional. But all the other benefits go away.
So we'll take some questions from media.
Investors are
Investors.
You're an investor?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Sir, Ramesh Pochwani from Mevakoi Limited. First and foremost, my sincere, heartfelt congratulations for putting in 18 months of non-stop work. It's reflected in your presentation, and I have been closely following your moves. You began by understanding the Gujarat model and went on, and you have encompassed each and every aspect, particularly the problems which the power, coal and renewable sector is facing in India. This presentation highlights 4 things. One, the discom losses have been taken over by the state government.
Don't repeat that. What's the question?
The question is, the state government themselves are having huge borrowings. The finance minister of Maharashtra
I just
said,
explained the fiscal deficit consolidated still doesn't breach. In fact, most of the states where there are discom losses, let's take for example, except UP and Rajasthan, most of the states at the individual level also don't breach 25%, which is the cap on FRBM. So a couple of states will breach it, will allow them a little time to downsize and correct themselves.
the second point was, in the last 15 months, the tariff which is being charged to consumers in Mumbai has gone up by 65%.
I cannot answer that. That's between the regulator and the Mumbai discoms, which is why I hope all of you can impress upon other parties to support the Electricity Amendment Act so that we can separate carriage and content. And you as a consumer then have a choice. If your current distribution company is overcharging you, you have a choice to shift to another fellow, just like the mobile phones. If anybody is not giving you the right price, you move to another operator. So service will improve, pricing will improve. In every respect, it's a customer-friendly move. And I've also committed that not a single employee of any state discom or power engineer or anybody will lose their jobs. So with that commitment, I do hope the opposition will allow us to pass that bill.
And the question which has been bothering for quite some time is, Coal India and India having the largest coal reserves, proven reserves, has not taken the initiative of having at least top 20 pithead mines fitted with washeries so that the calorific...
I just said it.
No, they have not.
No, but I just said what we are doing about washeries.
Yeah, I read that. The idea is that being such a premier responsible company and having 65,000 crore on cash...
By the way, I got your point. I have made a rule in my ministry. So all my colleagues and all of them here and those who are not here, everybody knows that mere samne, in front of me, don't remind me how things were done before 26th May 2014. So your problems about Coal India of the past, it's sad, I have no answer for that. If Coal India didn't reach its capacities in the past, I can't answer you why it did not for 30 years or 40 years. I cannot answer you why it grew at 2%, 3% every year. I can only promise you that we grew at the fastest 32 million tons last year, though we had only 10 months, which was more than the cumulative increase in the 4 years before us. And this year we'll add another 50 million tons. Next year probably even more, another 60 or 70 million tons. So we are ramping up rapidly. Coal India has two objectives, and I'm happy to share it with you. One objective is that when a coal Indian will walk out of this room or any place in the world and says, I am from Coal India, I want the person in front of him to look at him with pride.
Yes.
That he's doing service, he's running an outstanding organization.
Correct.
And the second objective, the billion tons and all will happen. They are supposed to happen. That's their job. The second objective is we are going to make Coal India the world's most valuable coal company in the next 3 or 4 years. These are the two objectives.
That's brilliant. Thanks.
Sir, this is Hardik Shah from Birla Sun Life Insurance. You
Do
explained...
invest in the bonds that are going to come out for all the effort that I'm doing today.
So you explained how the...
Just put it to your mouth, I can hear.
You explained how the funds will move out from the PFC and REC into the entities who will be investing into them. But what would happen about the margin compression that would take place? Because they have already borrowed at a particular rate, which may be higher than the rate at which the state bonds are there. So there would be a negative carry.
I think I already explained that.
So the interest component...
Bilaterally, just ask one of my colleagues. I thought I explained in pretty good detail what happens to the RECPA. They don't get the stress of that.
So because the borrowing that they have raised for those funds, that would be at a higher rate, not the investment part.
Anybody else? Any other question?
Any more questions, please? Yeah, please.
I'm sorry, young man, but my colleagues will explain it to you because I already answered that question.
Sir, two questions. First is on the interim period between fiscal 16 to fiscal 19, when the SEB will be requiring some support because they would be still incurring losses. Who will fund that?
The DISCOM will have to issue state guaranteed bonds, or the state government can fund it. It's their choice.
So 100% of that, or as per?
Banks are not going to fund it.
Okay. And it will be a clear...
That's the hard budget constraint we are bringing in.
Yeah.
Why do you think I'm so confident this time around? We'll not only resolve it, we'll not allow it to deteriorate in the future.
Okay.
In fact, why people often ask, oh, one more scheme, just like 2002, 2012, this is another third one. This permanent solution, the fact that we are not keeping anything loose end for them to park the losses, the fact that the central government is taking obligations under the MOU, the fact that we are helping them bring down their costs, improve their efficiencies with hard cash through our schemes, the fact that we are holding people accountable through close monitoring at my level and my colleagues, of course. All of these things are the differentiating factor between the past and this one. This hard budget constraint and the fact that states will have to bear the burden of the cross in the years ahead. And frankly, the states are happy about it. See, after all, who runs the states? The politician and bureaucrat. The bureaucrats are saying, thank God, because otherwise they are under so much stress and pressure, they are not able to do their job honestly also. With this constraint, so actually some of the states wanted me to increase this takeover by the states, even beyond 50% further. But I said 50% is good enough. The rest also the state will have to guarantee in any case if the banks are not lending. So we have the constraint on the state. Regulator cannot pass on inefficiency. Please understand that properly, so that you don't have this feeling why tariffs are not being increased. Tariffs cannot be increased. He didn't explain that example as well. It's like I make a mobile phone. Apple makes it efficiently, let's say. Good technology, minimum wastage, minimum labor. Efficiently they make and market it. Lowest interest cost. Suppose Mr. Verma decides to set up a mobile unit, manufacturing unit. He spends 30% more on material costs. He engages 20% more labor. He borrows at 4% more than Apple. His product is technologically inferior. And he goes to the market and he tells Shahzad Dalal, hey guys, you know, I'm an inefficient guy. I stole 5% out of my company also. But now will you please buy this mobile instead of for, you know, $200, please pay me $250 because I have to make some return on my investment. and I'm an inefficient guy, but look, you're a nice guy, pay me more for it. Will the customers of India pay? They won't. They'll refuse you. So let's all of us work together to become more efficient. And just imagine if this was not done. What are the problems? Discoms can't pay for power, so we already have existing plants downsizing, shutting down. NTPC, whereas it every day has a declared capacity of 86, 87%, is running at 72, 74%. All of that can now be produced, sold to the customers. Stress plants can all start producing and selling. 24/7 power can never happen. RE can never expand. Rural households can never be given power. Unless the discoms are in good shape, power costs are reasonable. Industrial growth. Nobody is going to come to India with the kind of outages we have. Nobody wants to invest in a country where they know that going forward you don't know if there will be enough power available. They want to come to a country where they know the slag is enough, that even with double the requirement, India has the capacity to service it. The banking crisis, it's not about the 40,000 crores that were to be repaid this year. If they are not repaid in time with SME 1, SME 2, NPA, whatnot, you would have 2 lakh crores of NPAs added to the bank books. You already have 2 lakh crores to the Gencos who are not producing, which could become potential impairment. So think of the huge impact on the banking sector, including REC and PFC, from potential threat to disaster. And with increased capacity utilization, as he explained in a slide, the fixed cost comes down. You can start even reducing power generating costs further. And I believe this fresh investment of $250 billion will become a reality given the various initiatives we have taken today. And I'm very, very confident that as Team India, where it's government, it's all stakeholders, all of you together, we can make a difference. We can truly take India to a level where our Make in India, Skill India, Digital India, Clean India, all our various initiatives will culminate to together make our power sector one of the best in the world. Thank you very much.
With this note, we can
please
close the
join for tea. The press can come and ask
questions, please.
Please. Say something.
Nothing. Press is coming.
I'll just use the restroom and come. Anuj, sir. Bhuvan,
We have got to put 5 one-on-one. Yeah, please. Yeah, 5 one-on-ones.
Quickly. I'll just use the restroom and come. I didn't do it. I thought over it.
प्रेस वाले हैं यहीं पे करवा सकते हैं